Good to go? Okay. I would. Good morning, everybody. If you can reduce a little bit the chatter, that would be helpful for everybody. Welcome to the May 10th, 2025 County Board meeting. I'm Board Chair Takis Karantonis. I'm here with my colleagues, Vice Chair Matt Ferranti, Member Susan Cunningham, Maureen Coffey, and Julius J.D. Spain Sr. We are obviously very happy to be back to this, our regular meeting room, after it has been repaired following the flooding incident due to a broken pipe about, 7-8 weeks ago. I want to thank everybody for their patience during this time, and our public library specifically for having hosted us at our last meetings and work sessions. To everybody who has joined us here today and those who are joining us remotely through Microsoft Teams, welcome. Please note that some members of the public, county staff and other presenters, are participating remotely, and this is part of our hybrid meeting model. Now, before I proceed with today's agenda, I want to make a couple of announcements. First of all, two very sad ones. This past week, we lost suddenly two members of our county staff. Firefighter Lloyd Edwards was Station 4, that's in Clarendon, and Ali Farougi, who's an engineer with the Department of Environmental Services and in charge of several bridge maintenance and improvement projects. So I would like to ask you for a moment of silence. Thank you. The board, of course, extends its condolences to the families and to next of kin of both members of our staff. And I want to also remind everybody that the last week has been particularly sad, where we lost a young fifth grader in an elementary school here, and also two very young kids in a traffic accident. So that was a particularly dark start of this May. Hopefully, it's not going to continue like that. So, general announcements and instructions. For in-person speakers, the podium is here. The height can be adjusted by using the up and down arrows on the right side. Please speak clearly into the microphone so that everybody can hear you. If you are submitting documents as part of your testimony, please hand them to the clerk, Mr. Davis or Mr. Kushner, with your name and contact information on all documents. For remote speakers, please keep your microphones muted and your cameras off until you are called on to speak. You will need to unmute yourself using *6 if you are on a phone, or by clicking the microphone button on the toolbar if you're using Teams on an app or a browser. We have a Spanish language interpreter. Buenos días. She's available for public comment, for the public comment portion of this meeting. If you can identify yourself. Very well. Thank you both. With that, we are ready to hear from our public comment speakers. As a reminder, the purpose of the public comment period is for individuals, A, to alert the board to issues that have not been the subject of a recent public hearing or an upcoming public hearing, and B, to ensure that we can hear a range of topics and to be fair and consistent across all speakers and issues. We do have one speaker per topic rule, and this rule also helps the board efficiently manage the main purpose of today's meeting, which is to consider the items on the regular meeting agenda and to respect the time of our neighbors who may be waiting for hearings on those scheduled regular agenda items. We appreciate everybody's help to adhering to the meeting procedures and being fair and respectful to our fellow residents. If you're here with a coordinated group today, we ask you to identify one representative to raise your topic. That representative can make us aware that there were others present who share their views. Importantly, there are other ways, many other ways, to let the county board know about an issue, including writing and emailing us at countyboard@arlingtonva.us. And for a more dynamic conversation and a deeper exploration of your concerns, including the opportunity for multiple residents to present many different facets of one topic, we particularly recommend attending an Open Door Monday session. The information about Open Door Mondays is available on our website. Please ask Mr. Kushner and Mr. Davis, our clerks, if you have questions about that. Now, on to public comment. We are going to start momentarily. The clerk will call speakers 2 at a time. And to keep things moving smoothly and to respect everyone's time, we ask that the next speaker come to the front and be ready to be when called. Now, we know also that many of you want to show support for the speaker and their remarks, and we welcome that. However, we ask you to hold any applause, and if you can, and instead prefer to use the American Sign Language gesture to applause and to show your support. Before we call the first speaker, I also want to acknowledge that many of you are here today probably because you're interested in Arlington's trust policy. As we announced already at our last month's meeting, we have heard your feedback over the last several months, and we want you to know that this item will be up for a vote on Tuesday during the chair's report after 3:30 p.m. That's next Tuesday. While there won't be an opportunity for public testimony at that time, we have posted the draft update online, which reflects the feedback we have heard, striking Section 7 with technical amendments elsewhere as needed to make that happen. We continue to welcome your feedback today and in writing over the coming days, and we truly appreciate everyone's input and the time that you have taken to share your thoughts on this policy. And with that, Mr. Kushner, please call the first 2 public comment speakers.
Of course, one moment. Our first speaker today is Tony Weaver, followed by Peter Evans.
Good morning, Mr. Weaver.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you barely. Can you turn on your microphone? There's a little button. Yes, that's already better. And you may want to, on your right side.
Oh, my right
on
side.
your right side, there is a button that you can lift. Okay, exactly.
Thank you. Much better. My name's Tony Weaver, and I'm on the board of an organization called Aspire After School Learning. First, I would like to thank all of the members of this board for your longtime support for Aspire. I think I've seen everybody at an Aspire event at one time or another, and your support is immensely appreciated. For those who are not familiar with our organization, Aspire provides after-school educational learning resources for 140 students here in our county. Those students are, 97% of those students are at 30% area median income, and the vast majority of them are reading 2 grade levels behind. Upon successful completion of our program, these students are 4 times more likely to graduate from high school. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that. Upon successful completion of our program, these students are 4 times more likely to graduate high school. About a week ago, the Trump administration unceremoniously cut our AmeriCorps funding. Our organization relies on 17 AmeriCorps volunteers to provide instruction. We are fighting this in court, in a federal lawsuit. However, our AmeriCorps members do not need to get paid in a year. They need to get paid now. Our students do not need to learn how to read in a year. They need to learn how to read now. I thank this board for their past support, and we appreciate your generosity in our time of need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. The next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Peter Evans, followed by Audrey Clement.
Good morning, Mr. Evans.
Good morning, and thank you again for the opportunity to bring gun safety issues to the board. I think it's up. I am Peter Evans, and when I first appeared before this board a couple of years ago, my complaint was that we're not doing enough to promote a culture of gun safety in our community. Today, I want to celebrate some of the markers indicating that we might be making measurable progress. First, both the school district and the police department have web pages explaining secure storage and why it's important, along with information about how to use our red flag law. And I especially would draw your attention to the APS threat assessment tutorial as especially worthwhile. Second, it appears that ACPD is ready to support a second gun buyback. The first gun buyback was last June, and proved that for just $150, we can make over 100 of our citizens consider the opportunity to get rid of guns that they don't need and therefore represent an unreasonable risk in our community. Third, the Arlington Community Foundation now hosts a gun violence prevention fund, which is open for all tax-deductible donations supporting gun violence prevention activities in Arlington, including the next gun buyback program. Fourth, the Arlington Wear Orange Memorial event to give voice to and stand in solidarity with gun violence survivors has become an annual event and is now scheduled for June 8th this year. Finally, I want to close with a look at the gun statistics that I distributed to you, because the data from ACPD now seems to show that trends are changing direction. It seems like we might be effectively reducing gun crime in Arlington. Gun thefts appear to be leveling off, maybe dropping. Gun confiscations, the numbers seem to fluctuate a little bit, but maybe they're leveling off. And finally, gun offenses may be leveling off, maybe declining. So with that, thanks to the ACPD and to the board for your support of a proactive culture of gun safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. The next
Our next speaker is Audrey Clement, followed by Amber Qureshi.
Good morning, Dr. Clement.
Welcome, members of the board, the county manager. I'm Audrey Clement, the independent candidate for county board. Open Borders advocates are denouncing local elected officials for cooperating with ICE instead of the drug cartels. At a recent Beyer town hall, Free Them All challenged Congressman Beyer for failing to meet with them over poor conditions at the Farmville ICE Detention Center. Yet Beyer is one of their best friends, having voted against H.R. 2, Secure the Border Act of 2023, as well as the recently enacted Laken-Riley Act that mandates detention of undocumented immigrants charged with crimes pending trial. ICE out of Arlington has denounced the Arlington Police Department for contacting ICE about undocumented immigrants wanted or arrested for felony offenses, terrorism, human trafficking, and gang activity as per Section 7 of the county's trust policy. It has denounced County Board for failing to revoke that policy. Make no mistake, repeal of Section 7 will release criminal aliens like Jose Antonio Ibarra, a repeat offender, an undocumented Venezuelan migrant who killed Laken Riley, to continue their life of crime on Arlington streets. It will also subject elected officials who won't cooperate with ICE to arrest for a variety of federal offenses, including obstruction of justice, harboring or hiring illegal aliens, conspiracy to impede federal law enforcement, and racketeering and other corrupt activities. Finally, repeal of Section 7 will endanger the legal immigrants who are the principal victims of undocumented migrants like Open Borders poster child Kilmer Abrego Garcia, who repeatedly beat his wife, a U.S. citizen, and boasted that he could kill her with impunity.
Thank you. This is not acceptable behavior, I'm sorry. So thank you, Ms. Clement. The next.
Yes, our next speaker is Amber Qureshi, followed by Courtney Massey.
Hello, County Board. My name is Umbar Qureshi. I am a member of La Colectiva in the ICE Out of Arlington Coalition. Today, we are delivering to you a letter from over 35 organizations and petitions from 800 people demanding that you end all voluntary collaboration with ICE and expand protections for Arlington's migrant community. You all are planning to vote on one of our demands to remove Section 7 from the trust policy on Tuesday. So I'd like to use my time today to remind you of the journey that we have been on over the last several years. Over 4 years ago, after ACPD turned over one of Arlington's residents to ICE, we sent you an organizational letter, just like the one we are delivering to you today, demanding that you introduce a policy to end your collaboration with ICE. Next slide, please. The community even helped draft an entire policy for you called the CAPA policy. All you had to do was sign that policy. Instead, when passing the trust policy, the board decided to carve out a loophole for the police to continue its collaboration. Next slide, please. Since Arlington's trust policy was passed in 2022, the community has sent you letters, petitions, and showed up almost every month demanding an end to this collaboration between ACPD and ICE. Although we face roadblocks, the members of our community who have been harmed by these systems were undeterred. It was directly impacted people who constantly reminded us of what is at stake here. Many of those folks are on this screen and behind me in this room. Next slide, please. And during this time, despite clear evidence that each year Arlington Police was collaborating with ICE and those numbers were steadily increasing, you chose to look away. Arlington Police kept contacting ICE more and more until it reached an alarming point earlier this year. Next slide. Just in the first month and a half of this year, Arlington Police's contacts with ICE have increased 600% compared to last year's rate. Next slide. Many of our community members are worried and scared. Next slide. And it is because of their leadership that we are here again. Just like the community has been doing for 5 years, we are demanding an end to all voluntary collaboration with ICE. Thank
Next
you.
speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Courtney Massey, followed by, just a moment.
Good morning.
Hello.
Sure
I've got a
about
couple of slides.
Yep, give me a moment. Pull them up. When you're ready.
All right, this is real quick because I actually have a different topic, but as we approach Tuesday's vote, we want to know, we want to hear your positions. Where do each of you stand on removing Section 7? Do you side with the community or with ICE? Next slide, please. I'll let y'all sit with that for a second. But I'm really here to talk about leadership today, and when I say leadership, I mean the leadership of the community behind me. Here, look at this room. I want to recognize and thank the community members who've been working on this issue for years, the directly impacted folks who've spoken up, mobilized, brought attention to this issue, canvassed, flyered, made phone calls, sent emails, collected petition signatures, submitted FOIA requests, shown up to these meetings over and over again, gave public comments, made board members uncomfortable, and everything
Massey,
else. Yeah,
Ms. Massey,
I'll
are
be
you
done in a
talking
minute.
about the
Everything
same
else that's
topic?
gone into getting us here
Sorry.
where we are
The
today.
next
It's because
speaker,
of these
please.
folks'
The
tireless.
next speaker, please.
It's
I
because
mean-
of these folks' tireless efforts that we've reached this point.
Ms. Massey,
I'm
please.
to stand with y'all. You're my neighbors and
Next
my friends
speaker,
and my
please.
best teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Massey. Our next speaker is Kishori Mahulikar, followed by Steph.
Hi. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm here again to talk about Dr. Bedar Khan Suri, who was an Arlington resident who was abducted from his home and sent to a detention center in Texas. Dr. Suri's case is set to appear in court on May 14th at 9:30 a.m. at 401 Courthouse Square in Alexandria. There is a planned rally to show support for him where many of your constituents will show up. I hope we can count on members of the board to be there too. Doing so would sow support and solidarity and let ICE and the Trump administration know that the people we elect to lead us do not stand for this injustice happening to one of our neighbors. It is painfully clear that Dr. Suri's abduction, along with Ramesa Öztürk, Mahmoud Khalil, is a sham and a tactic by this Trump administration to scare those who would dare stand against Israel's mass extermination of 2.2 million souls in Palestine. We are here, we see the genocide that Israel is committing, and we aren't going anywhere, and we're gonna keep showing up. Differing opinions shouldn't scare people in power this much. I implore you to ask yourselves why they do. Why does anyone, let alone Arlington residents who stand against this atrocity, pose such a gigantic threat to people in power? Why must Dr. Suri and his family be punished? If we let this administration get away with doing this to him, we will let them get away with anything they want. So we ask you to please stand against it, to come to your rally and show support. I ask you now what you're doing to make sure that ICE agents aren't ripping neighbors off the street in Arlington, and if any of you are willing to show support for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mahmoud. The next speaker, please.
Yes, our next speaker is Steph, followed by David Girk.
Good morning.
Good morning.
With a moment, I'll get your slide.
Okay. Yeah, I've got some slides. So.
There.
So I'm here to discuss a local issue, which is Arlington County's collaboration with the Virginia Israel Advisory Board. VIAB is the only state-level taxpayer-funded Israeli business promotion entity in the country, and for a pretty good reason, because their main objective is to provide preferential and unconditional funding to Israeli business projects with the goal of entangling Israeli industries into Virginia's industries and government. Why would Arlington want to collaborate with an entity that promotes foreign interests, much less that of a country that many agree is committing a genocide, one whose economy is rapidly declining along with its global reputation? Next slide. It seems to me that a significant portion of Arlington economic development's recent activity is in collaboration with VIAB. You can see from this email that Arlington County employees met with the executive director of VIAB to discuss his idea to market National Landing as a foreign tech launch pad. Next slide. And you can see here that Arlington County dutifully ran with this idea. Next slide. And here you can see VIAB and Arlington County also are working together on a Starburst Accelerator program in Arlington. Starburst also appears to work closely with IAI, an Israeli state-owned aerospace and weapons manufacturer. Next slide. And here's the related Starburst Accelerator announcement from March 31st, 2025. One thing I find interesting about these announcements is that they never credit VIAB for coming up with the business ideas. Next slide. And you, okay, so I'll skip to the, well, here, sorry.
You still have half a minute.
Yeah. And you can see in this slide, Arlington County is working, wait, did y'all skip a slide? You can see that Arlington County is working with VIAB to set up a 3-day immersion program for international companies. Arlington also sets an Israeli defense company up with RTX, but don't worry, it's tech-oriented, nothing that shoots. Next slide. And this immersion program will be happening Wednesday through Friday of the coming week. So basically, in conclusion, Arlington needs to reconsider the issues it brings to local politics, stop working with VIAB, and create and implement policies and controls to ensure our tax dollars are not subject to foreign interests. Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Girk, followed by Asim.
Good morning, board members. Happy Saturday. Name is David Girk, and I'm here in my personal capacity. I came to acquire some information on a particular open property believed to be 601 South Carlin Springs after doing some digging. You may know it as the former urgent care facility. I would be keenly interested to hear what the community engagement plan is for how the county will use that good-sized parcel of land. Of course, the extreme scarcity of county land for schools, parks, community centers, other community uses is something we regularly hear in discussions here. I am gravely concerned about rumors the county has already taken action on this property, perhaps before many of you were even on this board. And if this rumor is true, it was done without community engagement or any of the transparency and engagement from the county I know all of you value. Ratcheting up the concern is that the rumor is the county sold at least 5.8 acres of this precious public use land sandwiched between two schools, Kenmore and Campbell, to a private entity for a 112-bed behavioral health facility for, among other things, substance abuse recovery. Among questions the community should have had an opportunity to discuss is Is this property adjacent to multiple elementary and middle schools a good or wise place for a substance abuse and behavioral facility? Are there better or more needed uses at that property? Why wasn't there an open community and fact-based discussion on these issues and the best use of that land? Many have been closely watching for years for community engagement opportunities on this land that has yet to come. Instead, and I hope I am wrong, the county seems to have made a decision without the community, and that is a problem. I look forward to information you can provide or share and any process starting from square one on use of this land in a transparent manner. At this point, that has yet to seemingly begin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker
The
is
next speaker,
Asim,
please.
followed by Sam Levinson.
Right. All right, you guys know I have slides, so I'll wait for that. All right, so I'm here to talk about things for which people have been abducted for by ICE, including Arlington's very own Dr. Badar Khan Suri. So let's talk about what the state is
Mr.
exactly
Wood,
targeting
are you
as
sure
it
that you will
pertains
be
to
on
Arlington.
on a different topic than previous
Yes,
speakers?
I'm talking
Okay,
about Arlington
thank you.
economic development.
I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
So let's recap. For more than a year, after we've advocated for a ceasefire resolution, you guys have all said that this is not a local issue. Last July, Libby Garvey, ICE's most loyal soldier, told us, "We don't do foreign policy." Next slide. We've made it clear that you guys have forcefully made this genocide a
Mr.
local
Wood,
issue.
you're already producing materials that have been shown before by the previous speaker.
My friend, these are emails between Arlington Economic Development and VIAB. Two
but
different
this is-
topics.
okay.
Two different topics.
Last warning.
All right, so picking back up with where I was trying to make my public comment. Specifically through AED's operation, with our tax dollars, our local government, you guys have met with Israeli government officials, visited
Mr. Wood,
Israel,
I'm sorry, but
paid
we seem not to be understanding each other. There was testimony already on this, and you
About
have had the
VIAB.
opportunity to testify many times. I'm sorry, but I will
About
have to,
VIAB. All right, next
I will
slide
have to
then.
call the
Next
next
slide.
speaker. Mr. Clerk, please, the next speaker.
Next slide. We're going to shut this down. This is a completely different topic.
It is not a different topic. I'm sorry. It is not a different topic. We have heard the topic
This
already.
is a completely different topic,
It's
Thomas.
about the collaboration of Arlington and Israel. So,
This is about Arlington
I'm
economic
sorry.
development.
I'm sorry. We have to move on. We have to move on. Next speaker, please. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Sam Levinson, followed by Bobby Fisher.
Good morning.
Morning. I would like to give Asim the rest of his time before I speak. Please. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll abridge
this
my
is
speech.
really not how it works.
Mine is gonna be
We
short.
want to keep one speaker per topic, or at least one speaker per point of view on the topic. So you cannot cede you are the speaker now, not Mr. Wood. The next speaker.
It's not going to
please.
take long.
You can submit your comments.
What are you
can
afraid of?
submit.
What are you
Mr.
afraid of?
Wood,
It's a different
The
topic.
chairs
All right, all right.
recognize
both.
Speaker
You can
Sam
submit
Levinson
your
to speak,
comments.
please.
You can submit your
All right.
comments.
All right.
So.
I'll speak. All right. While the Nakba has been ongoing for decades, May 15th, 2025 is the 77th anniversary of the widely recognized 1948 Nakba, when Israelis expelled over 800,000 Palestinians from their homes and lands in Haifa, Jaffa, Jerusalem, and over 500 Palestinian towns and villages. Nakba means catastrophe in Arabic, and denying this is denying the human rights of the Palestinians. The Palestinians were the majority population in Palestine and owned 94% of the land that became the State of Israel in 1948. The Israelis continued to prevent the Palestinians from returning to their homes and lands in violation of international law, which is aided by Arlington County's material support of genocide. Imagine being driven from your home, losing all your possessions, and becoming a refugee for 75 plus years, separated from your family and everything you love, and demonized for struggling to achieve your human rights. Northern Virginia has one of the highest concentrations of Arab Americans in the country, and many of them are Palestinian Americans. They sought refuge in the United States after being forced from Palestine, including in Arlington County, Virginia. Most Arab Americans have been affected in some way by the Nakba, especially if they have families in Palestine and almost anywhere else throughout the Levant and dispersed throughout the world. While it is far from enough on its own, Arlington County has the utmost moral obligation to commemorate the Nakba because the population of Arlington County is multicultural, educated, and compassionate, and we are collectively concerned about Palestinians and the Holy Land. We ask Arlington County to recognize the humanity of the Palestinians by commemorating the 77th anniversary of the 1948 Nakba and acknowledging the Palestinians' ongoing struggle to achieve their inalienable human rights and return to their homeland.
Thank you. The next speaker, please.
Our next and final speaker is Bobby Fisher.
Good morning, Ms. Fisher.
My name is Bobby Fisher. I cannot say and will not say good morning until Diane Kress, the Director of Libraries, be fired immediately. Before you, I had copies made, 5 documents. Diane Kress had 16 police officers to arrest me on a false trespass in my neighborhood, a library. The second document I want you to take a close look at, where my name on a public record, Virginia summons, was forged by a police officer. That is not my signature. Forgery in Virginia is a serious offense that will cost a police officer 10 years in prison or $100,000. The fourth document was about a police officer. This is a news article, who was guilty to forging name on a court summons, which is very similar to what I'm having. I have, for the last 2 years, I have been offended, violated by police officers. I have been handcuffed. I have never, ever been arrested or had a problem in Virginia until I moved
Can
here.
you conclude, Ms. Fisher?
And I hope you will look at these documents. The White House will be taking, will be getting copies of it.
We have copies of this. Thank you.
There are no further speakers.
Is there any other speaker?
No further speakers.
Not at this point. As it is customary, I will provide short responses to the speakers today, and that means that includes always our willingness to follow up with you later on details of your testimony. First of all, Mr. Weaver, on behalf of everybody who came here for Aspire After School Learning, we are well aware of the situation. You referred to that the Trump administration unceremoniously cut, actually deliberately cut. This was not anything unceremonious or, just by the way. This was deliberate, that was well planned and designed to inflict maximum pain and inflict maximum damage to the United States, to the AmeriCorps, etc. We know that Aspire is not the only nonprofit here that provides essential services to the people of Arlington through AmeriCorps volunteerism, but it's one of the first and most impacted ones. We've been, all of us, in contact with leadership, with executive leadership of Aspire, early, very early, since the very first hint that this might happen. We know that right now the programs can go until the end, without interruption, until the end of the school year. We're working with our colleagues, with our staff on the Department of Parks and Recreation to find ways to keep the programs available for the summer camps, and B, as many AmeriCorps volunteers here and engaged and employed throughout the summer. And we will be discussing about next year, where the bulk of the challenge is to continue. We're very aware of that, and thank you for bringing that up. And we call you to maintain your engagement on this. This is absolutely essential service. You're absolutely right. The educational outcomes for the kids that Aspire is serving, about 180 right now, I think 140, are contrast starkly in the positive towards those who have not had this support. Mr. Evans, next month is Crime Prevention Month. Thank you for bringing the statistics to us. We know that with your engagement, communities' insistence, that we have been able to improve a lot in gun safety here. But I think also that what really wins is not only the county board's action, but mostly the partnership with the community, especially with people like you, like Moms Demand Action, that get us to these sustained, improved outcomes. Ms. Clement, and to all those who have testified on Section 7, will provide feedback and our opinion. We want you to know that we are going to remove Section 7, but the details on that and the justifications will come at our Tuesday meeting. I have to say, though, to Ms. Clement, that I take particular offense when you try to suggest that we somehow, the removal of Section 7 is supporting criminals or would lead to the release of criminals. Those who have committed a crime will do the time, and they will be judged with due process in every constitutional and within the constitutional frame of the United States Constitution. This is what we always stood for, and this is what we continue to stand for. Ms. Qureshi, the same applies to your testimony. Thank you for that. But to all these, we already provided a statement at the beginning of this meeting, and we will continue this conversation on Tuesday. And the same goes for Ms. Massey. Ms. Mahulka, I hope I didn't butcher your last name, who testified for reminding us of the fate of Dr. Suri. I take your testimony very seriously, and I'm trying to disengage it from the political context that you provided. For me, and I believe for most Arlingtonians, a political arrest and threatening and actually retaliating on speech is something that, in my opinion, violates the U.S. Constitution, everything this country has stood for, and everything that we as members of a democratic society stand for. I don't know how far away I am politically to the opinions of Dr. Suri, but I know one thing, that for his right to express his opinion freely and without retribution or retaliation, I would stand every single day. So, and this is not only me who says that. This is also what several judges are saying, that judges that have been appointed by 6 different presidents. So I think that we all understand that what is happening here and what we are definitely against is using deportation, arrests without due process against the exercise of simple free speech, which is the First Amendment angle to that. To staff on the Virginia-Israel Advisory Board and to those who have testified on the Arlington Economic Development, we said before, and I will reiterate, we don't filter the state initiatives or our contacts with companies based on political or foreign policy considerations, other ideological things. We don't have this filter. We do work with those who want to come to Arlington, invest in Arlington, employ people in Arlington or in Virginia. I'm not very familiar with the level of participation in the Virginia-Israel Advisory Board. I believe that this is a state board. So in that sense, I'm happy to look deeper into that and to see if there is any angle that could be subject to scrutiny here. We'll do due diligence on that. I wasn't aware of this. But nevertheless, previous statements on us being not participants in foreign policy stand. Mr. Kirk on 618 South Carlin Springs. I would disagree with you that this is something that is, shielded from the community or otherwise not discussed. It is actually excessively, intensively discussed with the community, especially with the neighboring neighborhoods. So I will. I will pass it to Mark. I was about to say that. So,
So thank you, Mr. Chair. And I offer the individual who came forward, you can touch base with Stephanie afterwards or with me. But currently on our website, there was a copy of a letter of intent that I signed that the board was aware of and we posted to the community 2 years ago that talks about the outlines of a potential use of the property by by VHC Health at 601 South Carlin Springs Road. And as was pointed out back then, that is a letter of intent. We have been to the Glen Carlin Civic Association as recently as a month ago to talk about the outlines of a potential plan that's going to be submitted. But any plan that is submitted and has not been formally submitted yet has to go through the planning process and come before the county board for consideration with a large amount of public input. But there has been significant public input already, given that a certificate of public need is required by the Commonwealth of Virginia. That was noticed on our website and along with Virginia Health. But the future use of that property is still an open question, but with an expression of interest. So welcome more follow-up with the individual who came forward.
Thank you. Finally, to Mr. Levinson on I hear your testimony on proposing to commemorate the expulsion of the Palestinian population in 1948 for their land during the early formation of the State of Israel. This is again an event in world history among many, many others. There are places in fora in Arlington where history can be discussed. Like, for example, we had several events that commemorate the end of the Second World War. That was just 2 days ago, 80 years ago, or the Day of Europe, 75 years ago, yesterday. So I would direct you to the Arlington Public Libraries for similar for opportunities to commemorate or discuss events in history. That concludes the list of reactions to the public comment we heard today. Mr. Kushner, we have 2 slides on 2 very significant ongoing issues, which is the support and assistance that we provide to our federal workers who are now and continue to be under severe the severe stress in the attack. Oh, you want? I'm happy to do, I have to provide the space for brief comments.
Am I the only one?
Yes.
Okay. I do want to take a few moments as well and just thank you to our chair for lending his comments to some of the folks that came up. But historically, I think most members on the board have had an opportunity to also lean in, so I'm going to lean in a little bit. To Aspire, I think our chair hit the ball out the park, and I'm innately aware of what is going on with the Aspire and our AmeriCorps team. I see a few folks here, the executive director, Paula. Claudia Ramirez is also a big-time person there at Aspire, and so many others. So I really want to thank you for being here. You know, the literacy and work that you do in that area is very important to I think, the entire board. But I just want to recognize you for being here today, and also congratulations in order for being recognized as Nonprofit of the Year from the local chamber. So we hear you, I hear you, and I just want to lift up what has been said. I am wearing my Mom's Demand Action bracelet today, as I do most days, and I think the gun pay buyback last year was phenomenal, and I hope, Peter, that we can work together this year to do even more to get these guns off the street. I had a unique opportunity last night out at Wolf Trap to cross paths with the lawyer of Dr. Suri to have brief conversations. I will tell you that they're working diligently, his team, to get him back. And outside of the scope of my role as a board member, as a private citizen, I hope to be there and support when he's there when the court happens, just to let that be known publicly. Lastly, I will say this because, you know, I realize how these board meetings work. Our chair talked about we're gonna do what we need to do with Section 7 on next week, but I know for certain that most folks ain't gonna be available at 3:30 next Tuesday. So let me give a few comments without going into the weeds on Section 7 about where I'm at. To date, I will say since March, actually, I've received personally about 41 emails. I counted them this morning from folks who were concerned about Section 7, the trust policy. And I've heard from a number of folks in the community, some colleagues and myself on the board. We've met with folks from different organizations, so we've heard you. And I think on Tuesday, we'll have a more robust conversation about Section 7. But in full transparency, let me be perfectly clear. I said this when I came on the board in January, that I am going to be here to protect folks' civil rights and liberties at the end of the day, and that we're going to do our best to protect our folks from overreach by anyone. And we're going to also abide by federal law, but I think Section 7 in and of itself has been a conversation that has taken place for many years, and I'm just so excited about what we intend to do, what we plan to do, what we're going to think about next week. It's not the end all be all, y'all. I'm just gonna let you know. You know, what's, in my opinion, what is going on in our country, whether that's Dr. Suri and other places across our nation, is a travesty, right? And, you know, we're gonna do our very best, I know, collectively to protect the rights and lives of our citizens as a board. So again, I know many of you won't be here because of work or whatever it may be at a recess meeting at 3:30 on next week. But I just want to lift up what everyone has been doing. Even those that may be opposed to this, just realize that we're doing this in an effort to protect the rights and liberties of others and ensure that due process is in place and that we aren't out here just taking folks off the street. All right, we don't participate in that. So, look. I tell folks a lot, whether I'm here for one term or I'm here for 2 terms, doesn't matter. But while I'm here, you know what you got. And I am going to do my best to work alongside my colleagues here to do the best thing that we feel is important for our community. And so thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me a few minutes to talk about this. And thanks for everyone for coming out this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Spain, with a reminder that we will have ample opportunity to weigh in on Section 7 on Tuesday.
Mr. Chair, 3 quick points. I had debated whether to mention anything. First, I think Paula and some others know, I am an AmeriCorps alum. So this is personal, and I am It is inhumane and stupid policy. And there are 50 kids whose services are at stake. And so we can't fix everything locally, but we can make sure that you know that we care, and we're going to try and do what is plausible. And that is, we already have some ways that we're trying to assist the possibilities for the AmeriCorps folks whose service has been cut short. And we've been talking with Paula and others about that. But we also, the students are, that's why we are all, it's at the center of our work. The second thought I have, I believe Dr. Suri and I think Kushari is still here. Yes, I think I can see you, yes. I read he wrote in the Washington Post and I read it. And I guess I would say Don Beyer and Senator Favola have both made statements on this issue. What would be helpful, we have your email, but if you could just send, because I want to know the time and date of the rally, that would be very helpful. I'm not guaranteeing everything, but I do want to know when it is, so that, because what he wrote in the Washington Post, I agree with every word of it. And then lastly, I'll just say, and there's plenty of disagreements. I think Mr. Levinson is still here. Are you still here, Sam? No. You had a choice to make, and I'm grateful that you made a choice to share your focus on the day in that moment a few minutes ago. So I just say I'm grateful for that.
Thank you. Ms. Cunningham, then Ms. Coffey.
Yeah, I'll start with the Carlin Springs site because this has been really important to me and to a lot of people. The potential creation of an inpatient facility that could treat up to more than 100 individuals for behavioral health and substance use issues is a probably once-in-a-generation opportunity to invest in the mental health of our community. We know for a fact that substance use has gone up since COVID, especially juvenile substance use. We've had overdoses within our own community of both juveniles and adults. And one of the greatest barriers to treatment is that there are literally not enough beds in Virginia, in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. There's not enough practitioners. In Northern Virginia alone, less than 1/3 of mental health practitioners accept insurance. That means you are paying out of pocket for necessary life-saving care. We need to expand our ability to treat people because right now we are driving folks from our own community down to Roanoke and away from their support systems and from their community, which does not help anyone to get better. But we simply don't have a place for them to go. People are parked in hallways in our emergency rooms because there are no beds to admit them to. And so this has been a very, very thoughtful process, and I think Mr. Manager said the letter of intent was about 2 years ago, but I know conversations before that. And I have been very, very grateful to the Glen Carlin Civic Association and those along Glen Carlin Springs Road for the immense support that they have offered. I have talked with their Civic Association president. I have talked with others in the neighborhood. They are grateful for this opportunity to have something that can be so transformational for Arlington County and its residents' mental health. And so this is a process that's kind of just starting. I think it's been slower even than some would have hoped because the need for life-saving care is so great, but we have processes. Virginia required us to get a certificate of need. It seems really silly in a national mental health and substance use crisis that we would require people to go through a process to show that there's need when we know there is community need, but we went through, we checked the boxes, and we will get to the actual site planning and community engagement as soon as the applicant is ready with actual plans. Right now, it's still just concepts, and then we move into planning. And so I think that's important color. You know, we can all talk about the same topics again and again. Dr. Suri, you know, the moment that I found out about his arrest and imprisonment, I was on the phone with Don Byer's office and Mark Warner's office that night at 9 p.m. Just because you don't see us doing things in public because it may not be the place of the board doesn't mean we don't know that we have, you know, responsibilities as people who have connections to make those connections work and to ask the people who also represent us to do the things that they need to do to represent our community and our constituents. And so I'll leave that there.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. Ms. Cunningham.
And I'd support all the comments that you've heard already. We won't repeat them. But I do want to just ground us on community. And I think members of this board have said over the last couple of months, as we come to understand more what is happening at the federal level, that we as a community and as a local government have to stand together in this moment. We need to cut through the hate. We need to support one another and not name call. And we need to, within some limitations of what we have power to do, because we are in a larger federal structure, we need to support each other. And so it's really all of it, right? So whether it's Aspire and facing major budget cuts, whether it's housing grants and school lunches, which are clearly on the chopping block next, whether it's meeting the urgent needs of our migrant community and supporting and caring for one another within a space of a federal government that is taking actions most of us do not support and most of us do not believe the Constitution support. We need to stay together, and I thank all of you for taking your Saturday morning to be with us over and over again in this very, very difficult time. And I challenge all of us to go home and help our neighbor that's sitting behind the door scared and uncertain how to act, help them find a way to act, whether it's writing a check to Aspire, whether it's showing up to a rally on Thursday, whether it's just screaming into the air because it's really, really scary right now. We just need to recenter on community and protecting one another. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. And with that, I would like to bring back that slide that we had for the resources that are currently available for federal workers. We recognize that, unfortunately, the cuts and mostly unlawful layoffs at the federal government by this administration are ongoing. And so more Arlingtonians, significantly more Arlingtonians and Northern Virginians are affected every week. So this is a reminder of what Arlington County, what is available to them immediately, resume assistance, mental health support for those who have lost already income, housing resources, food security, and health insurance. There are ongoing in-person and online job and employment relevant events. They are all available if you go to our website, arlingtonva.us, and you just put in the search prompt federal workers, you will land there. That's an ongoing thing. Like last week, we had a larger job fair in Alexandria Middle School next door. This will be continuing. Arlington Economic Development and our Employment Center are continuing to provide employment resources. We all recognize it's a very, very difficult time, not only for the employees, but also for their families, and of course for everybody else who surrounds them in our community. The second, we don't have a slide for that, but the second most impacted communities right now are our immigrant communities. We all heard about ongoing action by federal immigration enforcement in the region, in DC, in Montgomery County, and in Northern Virginia, and in Arlington, unfortunately. If you go, I will go back to the second slide. We heard there are ongoing resources for migrant workers, for immigrants, and if you go to our website and you just put the immigrant into into the search prompt, you will land to the list of resources that span the entire gamut from all social safety net support. Now, specifically for federal workers, but for everybody else, next slide. On May 13th, there are job fairs. 10 to 11 a.m. There's an online seminar. May 14th, how to market yourself to employers. And May 26th, next steps. There is a resource expo for federal employees and contractors. At the George Mason University, over 40 employers and service providers will be in attendance to support area job seekers and attend workshop sessions on transferable skills. So this is always updated and available in the corresponding landing pages. Thank you. And with that, I proceed to our consent agenda. I will move to approve that, but before that, I will ask the clerk, Mr. Kushner, do we have any items that have been pulled from the consent agenda?
No items removed.
Okay, so then I will move that the county board adopt the county manager's recommendations for item on the consent agenda, and I will need a second for that. It's seconded by Vice Chair De Ferranti. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? There is none, so that the motion passes 5-0. The board just voted to approve several, actually 42 to be precise, consent agenda items, which include minor site plan amendments, use permit requests, ordinance amendments, requests to advertise, and more. These items were put on this consent agenda because they are considered to be non-controversial, but that doesn't mean that they are not important. They are important, very important. So I want to take a few minutes to briefly highlight several of them. We can proceed on next slide. Item number 5. This is a use permit renewal for an outdoor recreation facility in National Landing. The county board renewed the use permit allowing the operation of volleyball and pickleball courts at the Crystal Plaza 5 site until construction commences on the site plan. It is a good example of a creative interim use of space until economic conditions improve for the development project that's planned planned in this location to proceed. Next slide, item 12. This is the Army-Navy Drive Protected Bike Lane Project Award. The county board also approved the award of a contract for the construction of the Army-Navy Drive Protected Bike Lane from Memorial Drive to South Joyce Street. This project will improve cyclist and pedestrian safety and capacity, and will add amenities by extending the two-way cycle track to a connection point with a planned future Arlington View connector. The project will also include improved sidewalks, fully accessible raised bus islands, which is an amazing feature, and new street lights, storm sewer improvements, curb ramps, pavement markings, and tree plantings. Next slide. Item 18. This is the South Carlin Springs Road traffic signal upgrades. We awarded a contract for traffic signal upgrades and streetscape improvements at the intersection of South Carlin Springs Road and 5th Street South and 5th Road South. This is one of the many significant investments in making South Carlin Springs more safe. At present, the intersection has traffic signals that are hanging from a span wire, from a wire, and it lacks ADA-compliant ramps, and has been a long problem for safe pedestrian crossings. And so the proposed sidewalks and ADA curb ramps, the high visibility crosswalks, and traffic signal upgrades will provide a safe and accessible and user-friendly intersection at these two places. Item number 19. Next slide. This is the fiscal year 2025 Creative Placemaking Grant recommendations. We approved the recommendations from the Arlington Commission of the Arts for the fiscal year 2025 Creative Placemaking Grant Awards, which is a total of $100,000. We awarded the Arlington Philharmonic Association $50,000 for Communities of Arlington Chamber Music Festival, and $50,000 to the Langston Boulevard Alliance for an Arlington Arts pop-up gallery entitled Express, Create, and Celebrate. I cannot thank the commissioners in our Commission of the Arts enough for the input on these awards and for the work in reviewing the applications and recommending the awards. Next slide. This is the memorandum of understanding between the George Mason University and the Arlington County government for a housing needs analysis. The board approved a memorandum of understanding between George Mason University and the county to conduct a housing needs analysis. The county has worked with the George Mason University Center for Regional Analysis in the two most recent housing needs reports. This housing needs analysis is a key to inform priorities for the county's consolidated plan, and it's part of the 5-year review of the Affordable Housing Master Plan that was, I believe, we're again at the second review after the 2015 version of the plan. It uses demographic data and household attributes and combines them to identify needs and gaps in the housing supply, and actually to quantify and present needs and gaps in housing supply. Next slide, item 23. It's funding for Metrobus Route 16M and for service enhancements there. So that's something that I'm particularly excited about. The county board has appropriated $5 million from the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission Commuter Choice Program for service enhancements to the Metrobus Route 16M, which is the main and most high-frequency service Pike ride bus. For those of us who live on Columbia Pike, we know what this is. This goes from Skyline in Bailey's Crossroads all the way down to Crystal City via the entire length of Columbia Pike. It's a Metrobus line. The funding will cover 24 months, so 2 years of 6-minute headways, which is 10 buses per hour during peak periods, which is twice as frequent compared to current service. The enhanced service will begin on June 29, 2025, concurrent with a region-wide launch of WMATA's Better Bus Network. And very important for those of us who use 16M, the new number or the new brand of this Pike Ride route would be A40. I'm particularly excited about that. We finally got to a point where we'll have six-minute headways. We have been waiting for that for almost 20 years. So thank you. Next slide, please. Item 28. Childcare capacity building and quality improvement notice of funding availability. The county board awarded a total of approximately $565,000 to 18 childcare providers through the county's childcare capacity building and quality improvement notice of funding availability. These awards are in support of the childcare initiative, the county's coordinated effort to address the accessibility, availability, and quality of childcare in our community. So specifically, this funding will go toward training, curriculum materials, and capacity building to help improve the quality of childcare in Arlington. There is a list of 18 providers who received awards, and the specific investment that have been funded through this notice of funding availability are available online. Now on to the next slide. These are the requests to advertise. We normally list them in this part of the meeting so that everybody is aware. Item 36 is a historic district designation for the Brennan House, which is located on 2002 North Stafford Street. The final hearing for this is slated for our June meeting, next June. Next slide, item 37. These are amendments to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance. They are also coming before the board in June 2025, so next month. The board will consider adoption of amendments to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance to align with changes in state regulations and in the areas of tree conservation and climate resiliency. Item 38, amendments to the County Code Section 17, which means that in June 2025, the board will consider amending the county code to expand the list of county parks where alcoholic beverages can be permitted to be served and consumed during permitted special events to include, the expansion will be including the Thomas Jefferson Park in Penrose, which is the location where the Arlington County Fair takes place. Item 9039, next slide, is a resolution to initiate amendments for the Arlington County to the Arlington County zoning ordinance. This is a last and little bit more comprehensive item. I would like to highlight the board's adoption of an initiating resolution for amendments to the Arlington County zoning ordinance. This is to ensure procedural compliance with Judge Schell's October 2024 written ruling in the expanded housing option trial, which requires the county board to announce its intent to begin work on zoning amendments through a distinct initiating resolution. The full report is available online, but I'm going to briefly articulate the 6 topics this resolution covers. There are zoning amendments related to the following. One, I don't know if this is in the next slide. Oh no, okay, I will just go through the list. So the initiating resolutions is one, for signage regulations to facilitate commercial market resiliency, to facilitate the commercial market resiliency initiative and its objectives. Secondly, on landscape standards. Third, it's about new and revised regulations to support stormwater management and tree canopy goals in residential districts through management of impervious areas and other development standards. 4, the allowance of classes and instruction uses, such as for dance, art, fitness and wellness, music, occurring within religious institutions, to be reinitiated and studied more broadly than set forth in the initiating resolution that we adopted in December 2024. 5th, public notification advertising requirements for posting placards on properties and surrounding areas when an application for zoning amendment, variance, use permit, or site plan has been filed. And 6th, maximum building heights for properties in the CO mixed-use district for a block bordered by North Courthouse Road, North Beach Street, 13th Street North, and 14th Street North in the Courthouse Square Special District, as shown in the General Land Use Plan, for this to be expanded to include some or all properties in that same area. So that concludes the long, but hopefully not too long, remarks on the consent agenda, and we are finally at the point where we can move forward to our regular agenda. Mr. Kushner.
Mr.
Please.
Chair.
Yes.
Will you take comments on consent items?
Absolutely.
Great. I just had 2 areas I wanted to flag. I think you mentioned the placemaking grants, and I wanted to say a huge thank you to the manager and his team, because our economic development team was instrumental in that, and also a huge thank you to at least 3 of my colleagues who humored me last year during budget to put that extra $100,000 in. I've heard from both applicants and the commission that it was a great first-time effort, and that it really, in a time of many other challenges, created an opportunity for true innovation and connection across our county. So I really want to hold that up and hope we'll be able to do some of that again in the future. And then secondly, just because I'm the engineer and get to be boring, we skipped over all the capital projects, items 11 through 18, which are exciting things like slurry and paving and separated bike lanes. But I just want to share for the community that there are a lot of those. We do a lot of work since we control our own roads. And we do invest in them to avoid future costs and to also have a pleasant experience. And those are some of the first projects we're really getting signals of how inflation and materials cost elevation are starting to ramp up. So just the materials costs in several of those projects are double what they were a year ago, and we can expect some more of that. So we'll be back in June to talk more about that, but buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be an interesting couple of years. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Coffey.
Yeah, not an item that you already highlighted, but that I just really think deserves additional praise and context is the child care grants. With this money, we will have allocated about $5 million in expanding childcare supply over the last few years. And I think, you know, there's a lot of different dimensions of investing in childcare, but one of the biggest ones is if you don't have any spots, then it doesn't matter how much it costs or doesn't cost, you have nowhere to go. And I think this round in particular, which really tried to focus on family day homes, so people taking care of smaller groups of children in a home, which can be some of the best care you will ever get. My mother ran a childcare from our basement when I was growing up, so I may be a little biased, but I really enjoyed that as a kid. And it really shows that for some providers, even $10,000 can go such a long way to being able to enhance the number of children they serve or the quality with which they serve them. And so I'm excited, looking forward to think about what we can learn from the applications we got from this, about where are the needs for our providers, and hopefully future rounds of grant funding where we can continue to do these almost micro grants that don't cost us a ton of money, but have immense, deep impact on the availability and supply and quality of childcare.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. Mr. Spain.
Yes, just two areas I want to lift up, and you mentioned one. I'm very happy to see the partnership going on with George Mason University, which is one of our premier institutions here in the housing analysis through the MOU. So following that closely and bringing in subject matter experts, Mr. Chair, I think that is the way we go. And I want to thank the county manager also, because I know he had a little bit to do with that. So very appreciative of that and looking forward to see what that analysis, what that yields. And lastly, just another kudos to my colleagues on the board. If you have not attended the Arlington Fair, or if you have and you're familiar with 2nd Street, what we've done is we're moving usage of beverages, alcoholic beverages, onto the playground, the fairground itself. Historically, what has happened is you've had to take up like 2nd Street, all of that with a beer garden. And so what we're doing actually is allowing beer and stuff to be, alcoholic beverages to be on the fairground. I know Arlington Heights Civic Association, the Marine folks over there have had serious concerns over the years. So I'm glad that we're moving in the right direction there, but it's something we're going to have to monitor, I think, closely when the fair comes, when you start, there is some level of separation between the beer garden as it was before, and now that you're going to put that around rides and all that. So I think we just need to monitor that when that does happen. Other than that, that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Ferrante, any comments? Okay, so onward to our regular agenda. Mr. Kushner, we have one regular agenda item, I believe, so if you can call it up, please.
Absolutely. Regular item number 43 is Clarendon Square, located at 3033 Wilson. This is a two-part item. Part A has 4 parts. Part B has 1. A1, excuse me, is the general land use plan amendment to change the land use designation from low residential to medium density mixed use and to incorporate this site into the Clarendon Revitalization District for an area located at 3033 Wilson Boulevard, 1209 North Highland, and 1418 North Garfield Street. A2 is an ordinance to amend, reenact, and recodify the Arlington County zoning ordinance to revise map 1 in the Clarendon Revitalization District, to increase the maximum building height from 75 to 85 foot, to reduce the maximum height from 75 to 65 foot for the northeast corner of the site, and remove the required step backs on Wilson Boulevard and North Highland Street. Excuse me. Highland Street for the property at 3033 Wilson, 1209 North Highland, and 1418 North Garfield. Part A3, pardon me, it's a long one, is a rezoning from R5, 1 family restricted 2 family district, to C3 general commercial district, and related update to the Arlington County zoning ordinance map 13-1 to amend line A to encompass a portion of the property at 1418 North Garfield Street. Part A4 is site plan number 479 to construct a multifamily building of up to 309 dwelling units and ground floor commercial uses with modifications to permit less than 60% commercial use, additional density, reduced residential parking ratio, one-way drive aisle width, required loading spaces, location of loading, density exclusions, retail clear height, distance between building entrances, total streetscape width on Wilson Boulevard, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 3033 Wilson Boulevard, 1209 North Island, 1418 North Garfield Street. Part B of this item is an ordinance vacation to vacate a public street and utilities easement and to vacate a public sidewalk and utilities easement on portions of the property commonly known as 3033 Wilson Boulevard with conditions. So parts A, 1 through 4, and Part B.
Thank you, Mr. Kushner. As it is customary, Mr. Manager, the floor is yours for the presentation through staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I did actually want to compliment you on the floor. With me this morning is Peter Schultz, who will give the presentation, assisted by Anthony Fusarelli, Rob Gibson, and Yi Shen. So over to you, Mr. Schultz.
Hello. Okay, yes. I was expecting a green light. I'm Peter Schultz from the CPHD Planning Division. I do want to point out Mr. Yi Shen behind me. This is his first board meeting. He is with the Department of Environmental Services Real Estate Division. Hopefully, most of your questions will be about other items. Not that I'm sure he's, of course, he's very good at his job. So let me present to you the okay. As stated before, this is multiple items, all to facilitate a new site plan on the Clarendon Square property at 3033 Wilson Boulevard. Again, just a summary of the 5 requested actions as Mr. Kushner ably read off: the general land use plan amendment, a zoning ordinance amendment, a rezoning, a new site plan because this existing site was built by right, and an ordinance of vacation. The development, just to start off, that the proposal is to remove the existing office building that was built by right and retain the garage footings and building core that came with that building, and to construct on top of that existing garage footings and core a multifamily residential building with ground floor retail. That multifamily building will be 8 stories and 85 feet. That is the subject of the zoning ordinance amendment that I will get into, tapering to 40 feet in the rear with a 9-foot penthouse. It's 309 dwelling units, approximately 6,000 square feet of ground floor retail commercial. Coming with it is a landscaped, redesigned public plaza at the site. Just to briefly introduce you to the sector plan, which I will go into more depth later. The sector plan recommended public seating at the site, which the applicant is providing, a 40% tree canopy in public spaces. The developer is able to achieve that, and a balance of pedestrian flow, passive use, and landscaping. And I would like to point out this is not a POPS. This is actually a county-owned space that the developer will be constructing and maintaining at their expense as part of this site plan. And that is immediately across the corner, as you will see, from the Clarendon Metro Station entrance. This site is about 300 feet by the most effective pedestrian route to get to the Clarendon Metro entrance at the corner of Highland and Wilson Boulevard. Right now, it's a 7-story office building. It was built by right under the C3 zoning in the mid-1980s. There's 3 levels of underground parking. Because it was built by right, of course, they didn't get any variances on parking, so it is a significant amount of parking on this site, more so than we would normally see across the street from a metro station. Zoned both C3 and a little corner of it C5, which we'll discuss during the rezoning discussion. And it is there's a private plaza on the site as well as the county-owned public plaza. The private plaza is here. It does not have any easements for public use on it. This is the public part outside the property boundary line. I should also mention that it is adjacent to, and you'll see in the zoning, an R5 right behind an area of the county zoned R5, very close to the metro station. There is one single-family detached house here on Garfield Street that immediately abuts the site. Across Garfield Street are other single-family detached houses. On the Highland Street side, and we'll get into this in discussion later, the R5 zoning district allows 1-family, 2-family, and also a wider variety of uses, transitional uses, including, in this case, where my marker is, this building has been used as a dentist's office for over 50 years. It has a surface parking lot. Behind that, further on along Highland Street, is a building used as a religious facility. Religious facilities are allowed in all R districts. Dental offices are allowed in R5 districts if they are adjacent to commercial districts with a use permit. And that building, that is the dentist's office on Highland, has a use permit from 1973. Across the street is the 10-story V-Point apartments that were built on top of the First Baptist Church of Clarendon, now known as the Church at Clarendon. And there's office buildings and other structures in the adjacent areas. You see the existing conditions here. There's a kiosk, which the county board approved a few years ago, in the private plaza behind, but it does kind of create a sense of privacy in that plaza behind, and then the area in front is the county-maintained plaza area, which the applicant will landscape and slightly expand. So our policy guidance for the site is, we actually have numerous policy guidances. The most prominent is the Clarendon Sector Plan, which was adopted in 2006, updated in 2022, but not for this location. Those of you on the board then, that update concentrated on areas in the western part of Clarendon where we had numerous applications at the time. Clarendon's sector plan is unusual in that a lot of it is codified in the zoning ordinance. So they're not just recommendations. Same maps and charts that are in the sector plan made it into the zoning ordinance itself. Hence the number of, because many of these things are modified or required in the zoning ordinance, hence that's why the number of modifications that we see. Normally sector plans do not codify every aspect. They're recommendations, but with the Clarendon sector plan here, some of the most important information for this site is, as we see here, the height limit currently in the Clarendon sector plan and codified in the zoning ordinance is 75 feet with a 10-foot step back along Wilson Boulevard and Highland Street. Most notably, there is no step back requirement to the rear of the property codified either in the zoning ordinance or in the Clarendon sector plan. Another notable thing, this site is designated as a prime office site with minimum 60% commercial, probably reflecting what the existing use was at the time in 2006. That's why the applicant is asking for a modification from the use mix in order to make this a residential property. And we'll talk about other policies that will facilitate that later. Streetscape widths and build-to lines are also codified in the zoning ordinance. The streetscape widths in this sector plan are codified in the zoning ordinance, and the developer is meeting it. I will mention about a pinch point later on caused by the existence of the reuse of the existing infrastructure. Notice here the build-to lines. The build-to lines that were adopted for this site encompass also that private plaza area. So the sector plan contemplated that this, if any redevelopment scenario, this private plaza area will go away. But the public plaza, of course, which is in county right-of-way, county property, will remain. Frontage types also, the applicant is consistent with these, except in one area where the loading dock is a little closer to Highland Street. However, the parking entrances are in the location specified in the zoning ordinance and sector plan. So additional key guidance for the site includes, back in November 2024, the county adopted the board policy on the transformation of commercial office buildings where, and the underlining is original, it is a public priority alongside other county priorities and goals to repurpose obsolete office supply. The Affordable Housing Master Plan factors into this site too, the Master Transportation Plan and the bicycle element, most notably, and of course, the Community Energy Plan. To introduce you to the GLUP amendments, we are proposing two changes, and these were changes on the board's own motion proposed by staff, fulfilling the intent of the sector plan. The first was to extend the Clarendon Revitalization District boundary to encompass the entire site that the applicant owned. I should mention that this entire site has been owned by the same office building owner since it was built in the 1980s. So in fact, the existing building goes way past, encompasses more property than just the area that's designated within the revitalization district. And also then to extend the medium density mixed-use district to encompass, again, the existing site. All of this land is currently owned by and occupied by that office building. Based on the guidance of the sector plan, we believe that this fulfills the intent of the sector plan that the site be a redevelopable site and with these proposed changes. The zoning ordinance amendment that we're proposing is a change to the map in the zoning ordinance. I believe it's designated as map 1 in section 9.2.5. That is to change, and as you see here, the existing site is designated entirely as a 75-foot height limit. We are proposing to amend that and also to show the 10-foot step back along Wilson Boulevard and part of North Highland Street. We are amending that for an 85-foot maximum height limit, that's maximum to the roof line, with a 65-foot height limit in the back of the property where the property abuts that single-family detached house along North Garfield Street and is across the street from single-family detached houses. And to show the impact of the proposed zoning ordinance amendment, I should mention that the property line, the building is 25 feet away from the that red dashed line is the property line between the single-family detached house and the property that is part of the entire site servicing the office building. By right, a C3 75-foot office building could be built right up to that 25-foot setback line. There were no requirements for tapering either in the C3 zoning regulations or the sector plan for this particular site. However, during our review, the applicant was indeed asking for 10 feet higher than the sector plan called for, and that was written into the zoning ordinance. It was very important in our discussions with staff, the SPRC, and the developer that there be an appropriate taper just based on good urban design practice and common sense. And in fact, through the development review process, we have a two-step taper, a taper of a few feet at the 4th level, also with a change of material. The darker material is intended to make that 5th and 6th level look a little less looming next to the building. And then a very deep 30-foot taper at the 7th level, which the applicant will show you they will use for a rooftop garden. So in fact, the full height of the building is more than 60 feet away from the common property line. And this is to show the tapering on the North Highland Street side. During our discussions, staff, of course, explored options for tapering on the Highland Street side. There was a balance of trying to find not removing as many units that would make the property, the proposed redevelopment, financially unfeasible. And ultimately, there is a taper of a couple feet at the 7th level. Staff did notice see in the back there how further the Garfield Street side penetrates into the neighborhood. Staff believes that this is an appropriate taper, first because actually the distance between the existing dental office building and the rear wall of the building on that side is much further away. The building is not penetrating as far into the neighborhood as the side on North Garfield Street, and also this site is used as a dental office. So it is a combination of those factors that, that staff believes that the design is appropriate along North Highland Street. There is a rezoning. This property has always been owned by the same people who own the office building. It was always part of that assemblage. There was a tiny corner zoned R5, about 2,700 square feet. The parking garage actually goes into that area, and while this was built by right, so we don't have county records that are very thorough for by right projects, and we don't know what the thinking was, if it was intentional or a mistake, or the it was that the county approved it, thought it was all right to have part of the parking garage go in the R5. Today, we would not do that. If a parking garage intrudes into another zoning district, it would have to be a zoning district that would allow the principal use. Obviously, office buildings are not permitted in an R5 district. That said, we recommend rezoning of that to C3, and the reason for that is, again, they're keeping the existing parking garage and they're keeping the existing infrastructure in order to build on top of it. So it is there. We do acknowledge that developers' plans show that that area will be heavily landscaped and screened. No building will be built on that area, and that was, again, another key factor at why staff supports that rezoning. Here's an eagle eye view. The applicant will show you more of the architecture and form of the building. Instead of and it is again due to the reuse of the building's footings and core, as well as the use of a stick over concrete construction, which is a little less flexible than full concrete and steel construction for high-rise buildings. Instead of a 10-foot step back at the fourth level, the developer has a 10-foot notch that's vertical. The way that the interior floor plan allows that to do. So that is an area, it would serve the purpose of a step back, providing a little more light as well as visual relief. The developer will show you in their plans how they also, with a belt course at the fourth level, kind of imitate the level of a cornice architecturally in order to meet sort of the spirit of the design intent of what a step back on the front side would do. And here again is a close-up on that belt course. And the applicant's Art Deco nods to buildings in the area, as well as the 10-foot deep notch that provides light and visual relief on that facade of the building. And as I mentioned, since so many of the sector plan recommendations are codified as actual zoning ordinance, you see more zoning ordinance modification requests here than you would in a typical site plan, and that is because it is extremely detailed in the sector plan. They are requesting a modification for density, and I will mention about the site features and amenities to which they earn that density. I won't go through all these, but assuming the zoning ordinance amendment is approved, they will be compliant with the height recommendations. They are not compliant with the use mix, again, because of the change of use from residential office to residential. They are compliant with lot coverage, the build-to lines, the streetscape, I will mention, and the applicant will point, there is a pinch point on Wilson Boulevard that does not intrude into county easements or the public right-of-way. Parking, the usual modifications requested for parking, as well, one fewer loading space, loading location, and the retail location is compliant. Ground level building facade types are almost entirely compliant except for building space, entrance spacing on the side streets. The applicant, due to grade, just couldn't get additional building entrances on the side streets to individual units. The pinch point that I've talked about here is all around the site, we have a consistent 8-foot clear sidewalk, which exceeds the sector plan recommendations, and a 6-foot planting zone, which meets the sector plan recommendations. The pinch point comes entirely on Wilson Boulevard, on where a building column actually comes out of, based on the footings immediately below. That's taken only out of the shy zone. The shy zone is a private area that's not going to be dedicated to the county. There's no underground county utilities in this area. It does not intrude into the 8-foot clear. We have what we always support, which is a clear, straight sidewalk all around the site that is dedicated to the public. Site features and amenities, as I mentioned, probably the biggest one, which we don't often think of as a feature or amenity, but is getting rid of an office building that is outdated, retaining the existing parking garage. What that will do is shorten the construction time, as well as eliminate need for pile driving and other particularly nuisancey things to neighbors. We are getting a protected bicycle lane on Wilson Boulevard. This is in fact on top of any of the recommendations in the sector plan. The sector plan predated the master transportation plans calls for a protected bike lane on Wilson Boulevard. We're going to get a renovated public plaza, entirely public, but maintained by the applicant, not a privately owned public space, but actual public property, just like a sidewalk. Streetscape to current standards, except for that pinch point. Public art and utility fund transportation demand management in building wireless, the base affordable housing contribution, and to modify, earn the additional density over the 3.0 FAR limit in the zoning district. The applicant is requesting approval of 8 on-site committed affordable housing units and LEED Gold certification. Just to show the public process, the online engagement period, for instance, had 70 participants. We had 2 live hybrid SPRC meetings at which civic association representatives were in attendance and other interested parties. We had commission meetings most recently, which you will see actually in a later slide, and then here we are today. The staff our analysis is that this plan advances the goals of the Clarendon Sector Plan. The 3 highest goals of the sector plan were quality public realm, interconnected open spaces, and a rich mix of uses, and this plan does provide that. Heights taper up from adjacent lower density residential areas. The proposed Glup zoning amendments facilitate the site redevelopment as envisioned in the sector plan, and it replaces a nearly vacant, outdated office building with a multifamily residential building adjacent to the metro station with reuse, the environmental benefits of reuse of the underground parking garage. The Transportation Commission recommended 7-0 to recommend approval, and that the developer and staff work during the civil engineering phase to fortify the protected bike lane to prevent intrusion by vehicles. On May 1st, the Housing Commission recommended approval 11-0. The Planning Commission recommended approval of all items at their May 5th hearing 7-0. We'll acknowledge that there's correspondence from 2 civic associations. The host civic association for this site is Lion Village. They request deferral in their letter. The staff, I will not read all of these, but we have, they had 7 points. We have also responded to that in the staff report. Many of probably the most notable point is that they do not want approval of the 85-foot height and that the 75-foot height should be maintained. Should mention also along with our 75-foot height, again, does not require tapering under the current zoning ordinance, as well as the zoning ordinance does permit penthouses of up to 23 feet in height. And in fact, the existing building has a very tall penthouse. In fact, the main height, including penthouse of the existing building, actually will exceed the height of this building, total, including mechanical equipment on the roof. They objected to that the Highland Street side has no taper. I had gone through staff's reasoning on that before. And the garage vent is being kept. It is something that can be permitted, and it is being rezoned. Limitations of hours for the pool, we encourage the applicant and the developer and the Civic Association to work together on that. It was discussed at the Planning Commission. The developer can give a more fulsome answer, but that the pool will only be open when there are lifeguards present. That whole deck area will not be open otherwise. Allow parking from outside users was another request from the Lion Village Civic Association. Condition 32 actually does do that. However, staff believes it is most prudent that we do not dictate how much they charge or what sort of terms, but they have about 49 parking spaces that they do plan to rent to outside users. And then with exhibits, the exhibits have always been available online, but the applicant will, at today's meeting, they have all of the requested materials, that the detailed depictions that the letter requests. The Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association sent a letter in December that they generally supported, and we believe many of the issues and questions from the December letter had been addressed through the site plan review process. So the county manager's recommendation is that you adopt these five items, I should say, including enacting the ordinance of vacation and authorizing the real estate bureau chief for those vacations applications. And actually, that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you. I guess this gets us to the presentation by the applicant. Welcome. Yeah.
My colleague Tom R.G. is just trying to share his screen. I think he needs to be authorized to do so, though. Okay. Looks like he got kicked out of the meeting, but we emailed the presentation to Mason. I don't know if he has a copy.
Okay.
Give me one moment so I can pull it up. Is it a PowerPoint presentation? And what's the title of it?
It should have been 3033 Wilson presentation. I sent it yesterday around noon, maybe.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looks like Tom's back in if he wants to try to share.
Give me just a moment.
We can. How about we find?
All right, I think we're good to go. Thank you for your patience.
No, I apologize. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you can see the top of my head. Well, again, good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Weinstein. I'm a land use attorney at McGuire Woods. I'm joined by my colleagues from CAR, Austin Holderness, who's the Chief Development Officer, Jason Bakanik, who's the Senior Vice President for Development, and Tom Argiers, who is the Development Director for CAR. And if you want to go to the next slide. Next slide. And then we're also joined by Andy Chakowski from SK&I, who's our architect. And we're joined virtually by representatives from Parker Rodriguez, our landscape architect, Bowler Engineering, our civil engineer, and our traffic engineers, Galloway. Next slide. Just do a quick project overview. Mr. Schultz addressed many of these, much of this information, but we'll walk through it quickly. Next slide. So one thing we really focused on this project was to really engage with the public, recognizing the proximity to Lion Village and the single-family homes. We met with Lion Village the same week we submitted the preliminary 4.1 in July of 2024 to get their thoughts on the project. We then met with the Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association several weeks later. We had SPRC 1, SPRC 2. Then I reached out to the president of Lion Village on March 10th after we made our post-SPRC submission soliciting their feedback. And then I emailed the president of Lion Village again on April 22nd soliciting their feedback and notifying them of the upcoming public meetings. And also recognizing the sensitivity for the project towards the nearest landowner on Garfield Street, we hand-delivered a letter to that property on May 1st, providing information on the project and contact information should they have any questions or comments. And obviously, we got through all the commissions, and here we are today. Next slide. Just to reorient you, we are in the heart of Clarendon at 3033 Wilson. It's the intersection of Highland, Wilson, and Garfield Street, just about 100 some odd feet from the metro. The existing building was built in 1987 by right. It's nearly vacant. My understanding, and Carr can correct me if I'm wrong, is it should be fully vacant by this summer. And the intent is to knock it down, keep the garage, and build residential on top. Next slide. Quick overview, the site area is about 1.45 acres. The existing building is 170,000 square feet, which is about 2.7 FAR. The building is 7 floors, 75 feet occupied, and as Mr. Schultz noted, the penthouse gets you to about 95 feet at the maximum height. We're proposing 309 residential units, 8 floors, 85 feet occupied, And the parking count's 324, of which about 49 will be extra spaces, which will be used for storage for the residents. And also, the spaces could be leased out to neighboring residents of the neighboring properties if they need them. We're proposing a FAR 4.75, of which we are hoping to achieve that through LEED Gold and the provision of 8 committed affordable units on site. Next slide. Project benefits. So again, we're turning a nearly vacant office building into a really nice residential mixed-use building in the heart of Clarendon. We're proposing 8 committed affordable units. The initial agreement was 7, but recognizing the priority for affordable housing in the county, we voluntarily agreed to move it up to 8. It'll be provided 60% AMI for a term of 30 years. 4 of them will be 1-bedrooms, 4 of them will be 2-bedroom units, and those will be some of the larger 2-bedroom units on site. And we're also planning to make a contribution to AHIF in the amount of approximately $950,000. There's also some important public infrastructure improvements, including a protected bike lane along Wilson, which is a priority for DES in the community. We are going to work post-entitlement to figure out what the materials will be for the protected bike lane, recognizing there's a desire to have it be as solid and immovable as possible. We're also making improvements to the pedestrian and traffic signal infrastructure in modernizing the intersection of Garfield and Wilson, limiting curb cuts on Garfield, making some integration improvements along Highland and Garfield as well, allowing additional parking spaces, improving the plaza, which we'll talk about in greater detail shortly. And then sustainability is a core feature of this project. By maintaining the garage, we're compelling carbon reduction, and then the project will be more energy efficient than the existing office building with a projected 24%, it's going to come in 24% below energy code, again, targeting LEED Gold and all of those requirements. And of course, going from a nearly vacant office building to a mixed-use residential building will be a benefit to the county in the form of tax revenue. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleague Tom Argiers, who will walk through the design changes and features of the project.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning. Next slide, please. So here you have an image of the project looking towards the Clarendon Metro. Garfield Street is in the foreground, and North Highland Street is in the background behind the building. Next slide, please. As we were working with staff and the civic associations, we realized that, and this is something we knew when we first purchased this building as an office property in the 2015s, that this is the gateway to Clarendon, and so we recognize that this is a very emblematic and important image when you come off of the metro. Next slide, please. To that end, we spent a lot of time with Andy thinking about what the architectural character of the neighborhood is for Clarendon, and 2 things came to mind. The first are brick facades, and the second was the sort of neo-Art Deco interpretation. And so as we work our way through these renderings, you will see Andy and the team spent a lot of time thinking about how to use brick and the facade and sculpting both of those together to create sort of a new contemporary interpretation of the Clarendon aesthetic. Next slide, please. As Peter mentioned, here's an image of the setback to the single-family residence to the north along Garfield. This is the original image that we presented to staff in the SPRC. Next slide, please. And this is an image which you also saw in Mr. Schultz's presentation of the resulting massing after conversations with both staff and SPRC too. I would also like to note that we spent time with landscaping staff thinking about that buffer to the single-family residence to the north. And it does not show up very well in this image, but in the plans you'll see that we provided a landscape buffer, plus some high plantings, plus this fence to encourage a nice separation between the residents to the north. Next slide, please. Here's a previous image. Next slide. And the image after. As Peter mentioned, as we were working through the process, we realized with this setback, it sort of invited us to provide happy accidents. So if you can go to the next slide, please. There's an image of a community garden that we've been able to program here. This is a space that we think the residents of this community will love. It'll be an opportunity for folks to come and plant, harvest, plant herbs. We have working relationships with a group called Love and Carrots for a couple of our properties in downtown DC. This is also something I believe the county has, the project called 10 in Clarendon. And as we understand it, the residents love that as an amenity. Next slide, please. And here's a close-up image of that garden. Next slide. Here's an image looking back towards the property along North Highland Street, highlighting the relationship of the setback taper towards the dental office in the foreground. Next slide, please. Here's an image of the pool deck on the 6th floor adjacent to the single-family residence to the north. I would like to note that we've spent time with Parker Rodriguez and SK&I thinking about that landscape buffer to provide meaningful separation and acoustical separation from the pool deck and terrace to the single-family residence to the north. Next slide, please. Here's an image of North Highland looking back towards the building with, again, the religious facility in the foreground and the dental facility in the midground. Next slide. Here's an image along North Highland looking back towards the building at the grade plane, and what's maybe a little hard to tell, but that garage entrance is actually where the current garage is and where the future garage is planned. Next slide, please. So as Matt and Mr. Schultz have mentioned, we plan to keep the existing garage. What's pretty incredible about this site is that the existing garage goes from lot line to lot line. And through that process, we've realized we also wanted to keep the existing elevator shafts. And so for those of you who are familiar with the neighborhood, the entrance to the existing office building is at the corner of North Garfield and North Wilson. And so that sort of precipitated us keeping the new proposed entrance to the residential building at the same corner while preserving those elevator shafts. Working down Wilson towards the Clarendon Metro entrance, we are providing roughly 6,000 square feet of retail in alignment with the Clarendon Retail Action Plan, and working towards the plaza and turning the corner. We have some images of the plaza, so I'll come back to that. As we turn the corner down North Highland Street, you'll notice the loading dock is directly adjacent to the retail. In conversations with the civic associations and staff, we spent time talking about if the loading dock should be located next to the garage entrance, which again is where the current garage entrance is, all the way up in the north upper right-hand corner of this page. There were a couple conclusions that came out of that conversation. One is that we'd actually prefer having the retail next to the loading dock, and the neighborhood residents also would agree, because oftentimes not having loading adjacent to the retail encourages delivery and truck drivers to not actually use the loading dock and perhaps use bike lanes and sidewalks to load and unload. So we hope that's going to encourage the retailers to use the loading dock. It's farther away from the single-family residence to the north, and what unfortunately doesn't show up on this plan is directly across from the loading dock is North Hartford. That sort of goes on an angle, and with North Hartford being located directly across the street, it actually provides more favorable turning radii for us to use for the deliveries of folks coming to the building. Working our way down North Highland Street, you'll find residential units, and then again, the existing entrance to the garage is also the new proposed entrance to the garage. Please, next slide. As I mentioned, this is the below-grade garage. As we were thinking about what we wanted to do with all the excess spaces and in conversations with staff and the civic associations, a couple of things came to mind. The first is what you'll see on the left-hand side here is a very robust bike room, which offers multiple storage opportunities for the residents of the building, not only typical U-bike stands, typical bike racks, individual bike lockers, but then also individual, what we'll call fenced-in locker areas in case residents want to store perhaps a kayak, perhaps a bike, perhaps their children's tricycles. So we're able to offer that as an amenity on the first level of the garage. There's two ways for folks to access this bike room. One is down the ramp on the right side, or the other is, if you can see in the middle of the plan, we have decided to bring the freight elevator on the first floor. So if folks wanted to take the freight, that essentially takes you up to the first floor, right adjacent to the loading dock and the retail bay, where you can then go down the corridor and exit onto North Highland Street. Next slide, please. The other opportunities we found was to provide luxury storage, bins, cabinets, which you'll see an image of in the upper left-hand corner, colloquially called Bradle bins. We're offering, I believe it's 58 storage units, both on the second and the third floor. And then here's a breakdown of all of the parking offerings. There's 324 spaces. At the 0.85 spaces per unit, that's 263 dedicated to the residential folks upstairs. You've got some additional visitor retail parking spaces, extra spaces. And then in accordance with the Sustainability in the Green Building Program, we're going to provide 4% EV car charging stations on day one, plus 15% future car EV ready. Please, next slide. Here's an image of the plaza. We spent a lot of time talking both with landscape staff, urban design staff, and the community about what this plaza wants to be. And there were sort of three things that came out of those conversations. One is we want to protect the 8-foot direct sidewalk width from the corner down both Wilson and Highland Street. The second was we wanted to protect tree canopies, and so you'll see that we've spent time thinking about what that landscaped planter could be in the middle with trees, pollinator species, local plantings. But then also the residents wanted a place that they can come and enjoy, both with the adjoining retailer, but also if they just wanted to sit and pass by. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about how to balance all of these uses and create an enjoyable public space for the neighborhood. Next slide, please. And here's an image of that plaza. Next slide. And then really quickly, I'd like to walk down the sustainability benefits. Of course, we have decided to go through the green building incentive policy for the additional FAR. With that, we will be targeting building material reuse, the social equity within operations and maintenance staff, in addition to the EV car charging infrastructure, as I mentioned before. We will be targeting LEED Gold version 4. An interesting story is by preserving the below-grade garage, which is about 160,000 square feet of concrete, we are sequestering the equivalent of carbon that 11,000 acres of U.S. forest can do over the course of 1 year by providing a wood frame structure over 3 levels of cast-in-place concrete, the equivalent of 900,000 square feet of cast-in-place concrete. We are sequestering the equivalency of carbon of 5,500 acres of U.S. forest in 1 year. We also will be providing bird-friendly materials. I hope you've noticed that there is a commitment to biophilia through all the images you've seen today. One interesting thing that we're able to achieve that most other sites are not is a heat island reduction. For those of you, again, familiar with the neighborhood, there is a parking lot at grade behind the existing office building. And so by removing that black tar parking lot and providing a new contemporary office building with some green roofing, a highly reflective rooftop material, we will significantly reduce the heat island effect for the neighbors. And of course, we will be targeting a 24% energy reduction in the performance, and 98% of the project's energy source will be coming from electricity. Next slide, please. And with that, I thank you. We have enjoyed this process working with staff, and we think that this project really touches on a lot of Arlington County's objectives, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. A commission, so a climate commission. I believe the climate commission first, and the planning commission has the last word, as always, right?
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Joan McIntyre, speaking on behalf of the Climate Change, Energy,
Ms.
and
McIntyre, can you
Environment
bring your microphone a little bit closer? It is on, but it's a little bit too far away. The gain of these microphones is not
How's that?
optimal. It is better.
Okay, great, thanks. Good morning, I'm Joan McIntyre, speaking on behalf of the Climate Change, Energy, and Environment Commission. C2 has reviewed the plans for the Clarendon Square project, and we consider that more or less aligns with the county's climate goals and the need to reduce carbon emissions. Based on our evaluation, the check score we give is 74, which is higher than what we see with most projects, but it also, we saw a lot of opportunities that it could be even better and to excel. So to start with is, achieving LEED Gold. They do actually, looking at their LEED scorecard, they're only a few points short of getting to platinum. And also it could be a candidate for even more rigorous certifications such as FIAS US 0 or the
zero carbon certification through the International Living Futures Institute. Just one point I want to note for the county board members is that LEED 4.0 is an obsolete standard at this point. Version 4.1 has been around for a number of times, and version 5.0 will be approved sometime probably within the next few months. It's going through that final stage of the approval process. So as we're looking to upbuild the Green Building Institute, we really need to look for ways to make sure that we're automatically adjusting to the improvements and standards that are available. We really appreciate the inclusion of the life cycle assessment and clearly would like to see that with all projects by retaining the existing parking lot as well as using wood framing for the building. It really substantially does reduce the carbon warming potential of this building. At the same time, we actually, encourage the developer as they're deconstructing the existing building that they're making sure that they're maximizing the diversion of materials for reuse and recycling. They should be using FSC certified wood products as well as really maximizing the best, sustainable materials for construction. While the applicant indicates that 98% of the energy is electric, we really actually, the only addition is some auxiliary gas for the ventilation system. But why not go that extra mile and get it to 100% so that once the grid shifts to all electric, it can operate at totally renewable energy. The building can operate at zero emissions. Again, they're committing to 24% of energy efficiency improvement over the ASHRAE baseline, which is the GBIP requirement, and also for a Energy Star score of 90. But if you look at their energy model, they actually indicate that they could achieve much higher energy reduction uses than what is being committed, as well as that they could get to an Energy Star score of over 90. So again, we would strongly encourage the developer to make sure they're really maximizing the energy potential. And with that is actually encourage them to consider to look for options of using heat pump technology for hot water, which is much more energy efficient than the planned resistant hot water systems that are in place. Now they are committing to the GBI requirements for EV charging. But we really kind of look to buildings to provide, 10% EV chargers to start with and 50% EV ready. Now, during the planning commission discussions, they did indicate that they would have infrastructure to continue to expand for EV charging and to keep up with demand, but just not reflected in what the commitments is. And they also indicated, and something to think about how we think about EV ready and providing is that the way they do it in other buildings is actually, residents can charge and then they have to move their car afterwards so that, it's the charging is available more than just, say, the owners or occupants of existing parking spaces. So again, more for consideration of how we think about being EV ready and future-proofing these buildings. And again, the biophilic elements for a building that's in a very dense area with considerable limitations when you have a parking garage that pretty much takes up the whole footprint of the project. Nice shaded along the street side and the plaza, green roofs and green walls. And particularly, it's very nice that they're going to put in the community garden for the residents. Particularly appreciate, and again, this is something we'd really like to see with alls, is the assessment of what the urban heat island impact reduction is. Again, all of our projects should be seeking to reduce the urban heat island impact as we're going even for greater density. So in sum, this is a good project, but we would really encourage the developer to go the extra mile to really make it an exemplar for other project development.
Thank you. Ms. Patel for the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. This matter did obviously come before the Planning Commission. Just by way of background, there were 2 SPRC meetings. They were chaired by Tony Striner, who, in the spirit of saying these are our first, it was his first SPRC meeting and a very productive one. He was very pleased with the outcomes of the SPRC meetings, well-attended, robust discussion, and as the applicant has indicated, one of the benefits that came out of the SPRC meeting was the community garden. There was a lot of discussion on the height and multimodal transportation issues that got resolved in that meeting. So when we saw some of the public comments coming through, many of the comments included issues that were addressed as a result of the SPRC, which is, of course, what we like to see. Speaking of comments, there were 4 public comments that evening. One did not relate in any way to the actual project. And of course, we heard commission reports from C2E2 and the Transportation Commission. Overall, the Planning Commission is very pleased with this project and actually finds it to be a wonderful example of what can happen in Arlington when we're looking at redevelopment. The sense of the commission is that the reuse of the parking garage is really, we're pleased to see that in terms of what the impacts are on sustainability and the climate, and the commitment by the applicant on leasing open spots to the public is something that was viewed very positively by the commission. The biophilic features, of course, Dr. Byrne testified on what he would like to see on that project, but gave a pretty glowing report on the use of native plants and monarch preservation. Affordable housing contributions were, of course, raised by the Planning Commission. We always like to have a conversation about what this looks like. There are 8 committed affordable housing units, none of which are 3-bedroom apartments, but the applicant gave a wonderful explanation as to why they are unable to get to 3, given the shape and depth of the building. A very positive feature of this building is the higher level of bird-friendly glass. It goes well above what we see in other buildings. And as Ms. McIntyre said, they are really setting the precedent here on, talking about the life cycle assessments and heat island impacts. We really would like to see that more in our future development plans and reports. One thing that the applicant did not really get into today, but did get into at the Planning Commission, was they did an informal equity analysis and really did look at, who benefits and who burdens by way of their development on this site. There was a question about, what does the marketing plan look like for this? So this kind of goes to the consent item on the George Mason housing assessment. Are we going to have units that are open and available? How are they going to be marketing this to the public? The developer has committed to a robust marketing plan to ensure that their building is occupied, and a commitment not to that this building will not look like a hotel conversion, which is, of course, a concern for the community and the Planning Commission. So we were very pleased to see that C2E2 gave it a score of 74. Although the Planning Commission meeting went to 9 p.m. on a relatively uncontroversial project, we very much enjoyed hearing this project and seeing what came to life as a result of the collaboration between staff, community, and the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patel, and to all commissioners who have shepherded a long SPRC process, because we know that it's evolved over a very long time for the good outcome. I don't believe that we have any additional commission.
None today, no.
Not today. Then on to public testimony. Do we have any public speakers?
We do indeed. One moment. Our first public speaker speaking for 3 minutes and joining virtually is Mr. Bernard Byrne, excuse me, followed by 5-minute speaker Chad Berwick.
Mr. Byrne.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Yes. This will be an architecturally bland project. The building's curve near the Wilson Boulevard North Howard Street intersection is the structure's only notable feature or any benefit. The curve reflects Clarendon's Art Deco history. To emphasize this, however, the applicant should have curved all of the building's corners, not just one. The building has several green walls and plantings on setbacks on the 7th level and on the pool deck that residents can access. The site also has plantings near its sidewalk. However, despite this, the site mostly lacks biophilia and sustainability. Most importantly, the building needs a green roof or rooftop solar panels. Despite statements you've heard, there is no green roof. The main roof is simply just a lot of equipment on it. All sides of the buildings, all sides of the structure should have green walls, not just one or two of its frontages. Most of the buildings doesn't have green walls. The applicant's potential plant list contains more than 50 species of shrubs, vines, ferns, grass, and perennials. The plants include common milkweed, which thrives in Arlington's natural area and feeds many monarch butterflies. This is important. This is a benefit. All plants except 2 are native to Arlington and its vicinity. I have informed the applicant and its landscape architect, Parker Rodriguez, of the exceptions. The applicant will prioritize non-cultivars, but will consider cultivars when they grow to a more appropriate size and form for their locations. However, this is not desirable. Some cultivars have altered parts that don't feed pollinators. Others are toxic. The applicant can readily find non-cultivars in its extensive plant list and other lists that will grow, and these plants will grow to any size and form that the applicant may desire. The applicant should also use low fencing or elevation to protect plants from trampling and dogs. As you may have noticed, the site plan presently does not offer such protections for many plants, including those along the sidewalk. You really need fencing near the sidewalk, or something, elevation, because these things get trampled, and you can see them disappearing around the county where they don't put fencing around it. However, some places do put fencing around the sidewalk, and that's good. But this one doesn't seem to be doing that. That is fencing around the plantings, the trees and the tree trenches and other plantings at the sidewalk level. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne. The next speaker.
Yes, one moment, please. Excuse me. Speaking of pollen.
Mr. Berwick for the Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association.
Mr.
Good to
Berwick
see
for
you.
5
Thank you
minutes.
for taking the time. Yeah.
Just had it on earlier. All right. Good morning. My name is Chad Berwick, and I was the Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association SPRC representative for this project. I live 1 block from this site. As another first, this was actually my first time participating in the SPRC process, and I really enjoyed having the opportunity to advocate on behalf of my neighborhood and to work with the applicant and the county on this project. I submitted a letter yesterday evening which outlines many of our initial concerns and how the applicant has worked towards addressing them throughout the SPRC and commission process. One of the main limiting factors on this project which caused some of the concerns we had as a neighborhood was the retention of the parking garage, footings, and building core. This forced the applicant to propose a 10-foot notch instead of a 10-foot step back along Wilson Boulevard, a narrower sidewalk shizer than we normally advocate for in our civic association, a loading dock that some felt was too close to Wilson Boulevard, and partially a reason for the exclusion of 3-bedroom units that some of our members of our association pushed for. With that being said, we believe that the environmental and financial savings that arise from maintaining the existing parking garage outweigh those negatives. We support the conversion of the site from office to residential given the current slow office environment. We would much rather have new neighbors than an empty office building. We also believe the height being proposed at the site is reasonable as it is in line with other buildings in the area adjacent to the Clarendon Metro. We are happy that the applicant provided the 25-foot setback and 2-tier step back from the single-family house on the northeast. We love the rooftop garden, the public plaza, and the green walls, but we continue to encourage the applicant to put in place a premier maintenance program to ensure that none of these biophilic amenities decline over time. We are also happy with the applicant striving for LEED Gold, along with the reduction of gas use in the building and EV-ready spots, but encourage the applicant to push for the remaining few points needed for LEED Platinum, and we second C2E2's earlier recommendations. We are happy that the applicant is providing 8 on-site affordable housing units, 4 of which could be for small families and 2 bedrooms, as well as a significant contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund. We would always support the applicant maximizing the amount of affordable units that they can provide. I personally am happy with the planned use of the excess parking spaces by expanding the bicycle storage facility, providing storage rooms, and implementing a parking management program to allow for the use of excess spaces by the neighboring residents. In conclusion, we believe the applicant's requests are reasonable and generally support the project being approved. We look forward to welcoming new neighbors to our community, and thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Berwick and the Civic Association. Before we proceed, I also want to just state for the, of course. For the sake of completeness, that we are in receipt also of the letter of the Housing Commission, dated May 7, 2025, that confirms the unanimous support of the Commission for the project, 11-0. So, colleagues, I believe that the discussion with the board, anticipating that it's not going to be a very controversial discussion, I asked our colleague Susan Cunningham for a motion to start the discussion. It's a long motion.
I don't get any help at all for this one. All right. So if I lose my voice, someone will jump in. So I move that the County Board A adopt the resolution attached to the staff report to approve the general land use plan amendment from low residential 1 to 10 units per acre to medium density mixed use, and to incorporate the site into the Clarendon Revitalization District for an area located at 3033 Wilson Boulevard, 1209 North Highland Street, and 1418 North Garfield Street. That's RPC 15-067-003, -005, 006, 007, 033, and 036 as indicated on the map shown in the staff report as attachment A. Second, adopt the ordinance attached to the staff report to amend, reenact, and recodify the Arlington County Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 925, to revise Map 1 in the Clarendon Revitalization District to increase the maximum building height from 75 feet to 85 feet, to reduce maximum height from 75 feet to 65 feet for the northeast corner of the site, and to remove required step backs on Wilson Boulevard and North Highland Street for the property located at 3033 Wilson Boulevard, 1209 North Highland Street, and 1418 North Garfield Street, as indicated on the excerpt of Map 1 shown in the staff report as attachment B. Third, to adopt the ordinance attached to the staff report to rezone from R5, 1-family restricted 2-family district, to C3 General Commercial District, and related update to the ACZO map 13-1 to amend line A to encompass a portion of the property located at 1418 North Garfield Street as indicated on attached maps shown in the staff report as attachments C and D. And fourth, to adopt the ordinance for SPLN 24-00003 attached to the staff report to construct up to 309 residential units with ground floor commercial use with modifications to permit less than 60% commercial use for additional density, reduced residential parking ratio, one-way drive aisle width, required loading spaces, location of loading density, exclusions, that doesn't sound right. Is that right? Of loading density exclusions, retail clear height, distance between building entrances, total streetscape width on Wilson Boulevard, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development plan located at 3033 Wilson Boulevard, 1209 North Highland Street, and 1418 North Garfield Street, subject to the conditions of the ordinance attached to the staff report. Almost there. B, enact the ordinance attached to the staff report as attachment 1, the ordinance, to vacate 1, an easement for public street and utility purposes, 2, an easement for public sidewalk and utilities purposes, with reservations in portions of both easements for an easement for public sidewalk, traffic signal, and utilities purposes, and an easement for public sidewalk purposes across lots 43-46 and part of lots 47 through 62. Section 2, Clarendon, and Lot 63-A, Section 2, Clarendon, along North Garfield Street, Wilson Boulevard, and North Highland Street, collectively and commonly known as 3033 Wilson Boulevard, 1418 North Garfield Street, and 1209 North Highland Street, with conditions. In addition, authorize the Real Estate Bureau Chief, Department of Environmental Services, or his designee to execute on behalf of the county board the deed of vacation and any other documents necessary to effectuate the ordinance, subject to approval of all documents as to form by the county attorney.
Did you want me to answer your question?
Is there, any modifications needed?
No, and I'll ask Mr. Schultz to confirm, but the density exclusion is related to, building density, and I believe the phrase location of loading is referring to loading bays and loading docks.
To me, loading bay is a loading dock, but I think there should be a comment between loading, comma, and density exclusions.
Yeah, there is. It was just at a page break, so it was awkwardly delivered, but I think we're good. Thank you.
Second.
Okay. So, Ms. Cunningham, you can.
I feel like I may have tripled the number of words I've stated from the dais in my first year of service just now. Okay, I think I will just speak to this with a thank you to all who are here with us. I think starting from the slide that shows that the applicant went to the community early on, I think we have seen sort of exemplar project behavior here. So really appreciate that. I know we are always struggling with how to make our processes more robust so that community members are able to weigh in early. And I think in this case, the applicant really worked hard to do that. And then on the environmental side, just saving that concrete parking garage was no small feat. And as you got into it deeper, even more so, since it's built lot line to lot line. So appreciate the creativity and the commitment to making this work and changing the use to what we really need right now, which is more housing, a little bit less on the office space side. And I am sure there have been robust conversations throughout. So, I think I would just continue to encourage you to take to mind, if you're only 3 points away from platinum, I can imagine you might be reaching as you go through, but didn't want to commit to it yet. And if there's anything we can do as a board and as a community to support you in reaching further on the sustainability goals to try to get the carbon certification or the other residential certifications. We know that the green building policy needs update, and we will get there, but really encourage you to be in dialogue with us about if there are ways that we can partner, whether it's on waste management and recycling during the construction, composting, et cetera, or some of the heat and energy reductions that were listed here. But all in all, I think I am going to be in support of the project. I have a couple questions as we go through, and I'll let others speak first, because I bet they'll ask them first. And I will give the floor to Ms. Coffey.
Great. I'll start with questions, hopefully not particularly controversial ones. I know at Planning Commission, there was a pretty robust discussion around why 3 bedrooms don't work here. I'm just wondering if you could share that with us, because I think this is something we just talk about so frequently.
Sure, I'm happy to. So when you look at a greenfield site for this type of project, you typically like to look at a residential, what I'll call band, so like we'll call it one base of the U, that is roughly 30 feet in depth for the unit, 5 foot for the corridor, and an additional 30 feet for the units on the other side. So you're talking about 65 feet. So when you do 65 feet plus 65 feet, your courtyard resulting typically likes to be in sort of proportion to how tall the building is, so you make sure you're getting enough light and it feels actually usable and inviting, somewhere between 1 to 1 or 1 to 2. And so this site, is actually narrower than sort of those typical greenfield sites. And we're actually, in some cases, doing 25 feet to 28 feet for the units, the 5-foot corridor, and then the same across the other side. And so when you look at providing an inviting courtyard plus providing, units that will lease, actually be usable and livable, you sort of end up with these narrow bands. And so when you look at the plans, we do have some 2-bedroom dens, and those happen to be at the corners where you have more space to provide the aspect ratio to provide those units. One thing I will mention is that to provide the 3-bedroom under the state code, you need to have 3 bedrooms that each have windows. And so when you sort of shrink the proportions and look at how this all lays out, it was very challenging to find any 3 bedrooms just with the layout of the site.
Great, I appreciate that, and I always appreciate that folks really fully explore the options, even if they have to rule them out at the end of the day, to make sure that we've tested the configurations, tested all of the various fire code requirements that Virginia instates upon us. I think another question that I have is just in terms of you all have made a pivot with this property from residential or from commercial to residential. And I'm just, I would love to hear kind of your experience as far as how that went, both what were the things you were hearing from commercial prospects before you made this pivot? I think that's helpful for us to understand from an economic development perspective. And then, how was the process working with the county of getting what you needed in order to successfully move from each step of this process? Because it is such a huge economic development goal for us to make sure that we are working swiftly and with the folks who are cooperative and want to do this. And this is kind of one of our first, it's not a direct conversion. You're not taking the full building and just flipping it, but it is in a way a type of office to residential conversion. And I would just love to learn kind of how did you think it went? Where were the challenges or pain points? And then, staff can be thinking, because I will follow up with what you all thought and how you feel about this process.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey.
It was a question.
Sorry.
All right, got it. I think that's a great question. When we looked at this as an office, we own a lot of office buildings, Car Properties does, and the office market in the B and C category is just getting decimated. So you asked about prospects for this building. We really didn't have many at all. I mean, most of the office tenants today are moving to the newer Class A trophy buildings. And so when we looked at it, our only alternative was to convert it to residential. Maintaining an existing office building in this had low ceiling heights. The mechanical was functionally obsolete. It just didn't work. So we met with staff early on, and we have a significant loan on this property. So our only out was to convert it. So we met with staff. And we laid out a time frame with staff on we needed a quick approval to avoid a foreclosure. And I think staff bent over backwards to make our timing. So I want to credit the staff for working with the applicant, because then once we had kind of the timeline and the game plan with staff, we went to the lender and got the approval to convert it to residential and go through the process. So we couldn't be any more complimentary of the process of working with staff and the county on this, and to avoid a foreclosure on this project and move forward as residential. So we're really happy with how it's turned out so far.
Excellent. And then for staff, how did you feel about going through this process?
I would thank you for the kind words from the applicant. I would like to reassure everyone that the process was as thorough as any other site plan review. We have had a long-standing goal to make site plan review more efficient anyway. The current process that we have, I think, helps us focus. And I would like to state that staff is very confident every, aspect of this was thoroughly reviewed by us. The public engagement was robust from the very beginning. And we are fortunate to be here that we also had a cooperative applicant that we were not satisfied totally with the first submittal, but they worked with us throughout it, understanding their limitations and their goals. They were also cooperative with us. So I think the importance is that it's, I think as staff, we have a good process, but also that you have an applicant that listens to the community and listens to staff is very important for actually bringing these in a timely manner.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, I think, Mr. Schwartz.
I did want to add one thing, because this site is a little bit unusual. There was a Clarendon plan that had been adopted in 2006, and there were some really, I'm going to get it all wrong, Anthony can correct me, some zoning requirements there. So we actually met as an original matter back in 2023, almost 2 years ago, and had a conceptual conversation with the then board to say, is this something we should even go down the road to do, given that there are some in-code requirements? And the board then, and subsequent, without saying, of course, that they would approve or know anything, was very receptive to the idea, given our focus on commercial market resiliency. So it was a good partnership up front, and we encouraged those kinds of conversations.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I think the robust engagement up front that I know you all shared, the timeline, as well as the timeline of, I think, 5 separate resubmissions, really shows both engaging up front gets us a lot of the answers that we need to get to a good thing, but also the willingness to continually make changes in response to feedback. That is definitely the kind of applicants that we like to work with, because it's when people start to dig in and really won't change things that the community feels so strongly about. We get into issues of having to pick and choose, and instead I think you've done a great job to incorporate. I'll have some concluding comments, but that's all from me.
Okay. I actually can attest to the consultation that the county manager had. I have to also say I personally had to think a lot about, giving up the use. This is across Metro. This is not any place. So this is one of the strongest assets according to, smart growth manual of the 2000s, right? So, but we saw over time that the economics, the specific pressure. I mean, this is a less than 40 years old building. This is not exactly an old building. But it's an obsolete building nevertheless. So these were significant challenges that came up and gave, structured our mind around what commercial resilience means and how best to balance the goals of the plan and still be compliant with the deliverables of the plan. So other questions, Mr. Spain?
Yeah. So day 130 exactly for me, and I'm going to tell you, I'm taking notice of how these projects and sites evolve. I too am going to be very supportive of this at the end of the day, but there are a few things, and I don't want to delay our time and just ramble here, but there are a few areas that I would love to talk a little bit more about. I've heard don't let perfect be the enemy of the good, and I want to commend our staff, Peter, more specifically, for really addressing to what we look at when we talk about community engagement. I know we had some conversations in the past week or so with staff, and though Lion Village, I look at our civic and neighborhood associations and see what their concerns are. I think we address those areas quite handily in this package. So thank you for doing that, because everyone has a voice. To the staff at McGuire Woods and Carr Properties, I think what I've observed here is really, really good collaboration from Jump Street since I've been here, and I really want to commend you and what you've done to FOR. Mr. Chair, you pointed out earlier that the Housing Commission did submit a letter. Yeah, I've read all the letters, and I just want to bring up for a second, there was some frustration, okay, from the Housing Commission about the process being too late in the game, right? And I think this is something internal for us to think about as we put this pressure, I think, on all of our commissions when you're talking about The Housing Commission met on May 1st, 9 days ago. Planning Commission on May 5th, about 4 days ago. We're asking a lot of these groups in a very short time. And so the perception can easily be a lot of times, depending on what's going on here in the public, that, you know, the cake is already made. And, you know, there were some significant concerns, I think, that the Housing Commission brought up that we, outside of this project, may need to look at when we talk about having meaningful discussions on all of these projects. So that's just for the record. I want to lift up what they brought up. Also read earlier about the consideration and thoughts of too much parking and consideration for paid parking. So I'll ask the applicant, can you talk a little bit about considerations of paid parking perhaps in the new development, if any, and if so, yes, if not, why not? I know there was a concern in some of the letters.
Well, the parking for the residents will be charged too. So the residents will take a 0.85 of the parking. And then if there's paid parking for outside residents, we would welcome that. Because as you saw in the presentation, we have about 50 extra spaces. So from a landlord, we would love to get revenue from those spaces. So we plan to offer those to neighboring buildings and hope neighboring buildings will use them. So that's our plan and goal.
Thank you for making that clear. And I think I'll have just one more question. Can you explain, this is from the applicant, what's the difference between a luxury storage bin and a regular bin? I would just love to know.
Let Tom answer that one.
Is there a difference?
That's a great question.
I mean, you're going to have like a TV and water. What's going on there?
So I'll explain this by way of a story. So my wife and I are expecting our first kid.
Congratulations.
And so we're considering looking to move, but we have some lag between getting the house and where we're going to go. We've got a lot of stuff, right? And so we got to do something with it because we got to make room for the nursery. So we're looking to store this stuff. Yeah. So there's different sizes.
That's why we have Goodwill. Go ahead.
Exactly. My wife would agree with you on some of my things. So there's different sizes of storage. There's some that are conditioned and some that are not. There are some that are higher floors, so they're, some are lower floors. And so all this is to say is that the luxury storage units we'll be providing will be conditioned. They will be individual. They will be fully closed. They won't be a fence, right? Oftentimes you'll see fenced in areas. And so it's just a higher level of security and touch and feel for the residents when they store their materials there.
I gotcha. Yeah. Pamper. Just pamper all of them. That is great to know. I think there's another. Go ahead.
For the record, Tom is trying to convince his wife to move to Virginia too, out of the district.
I think my last, Mr. Chair, my last comment, and maybe this, and thanks for explaining the luxury storage. Again, I did not know what that meant, and I think a lot of folks who may be, curious now found out. I know in an earlier presentation, not today, I did inquire about the EV ready. 4% on day one and then 15% future ready. Can you just talk a little bit more about what that means for just the common folk who are listening as we talk a lot of new developments about, the availability of EV. Tell them what that means about 4% on day one versus 15% future ready. I get it, just explain that a little bit.
Yeah, not a problem. So 4% day one is you drive in your parking garage when the building is opened and you're able to find a EV car charging space. Future ready, 15% at our property will mean that we have the conduit in place, we have space for the panels, and we have the power capacity from Dominion Virginia Power at the property to provide future capacity in the future when we find the need for it. I will note that there are some interesting conversations we have with utility in terms of looking at the 50% threshold. They sometimes become less interested because they don't see the demand today, and that just creates some interesting conversations we have as applicants looking for providing a larger capacity that I think is worth talking about.
Great. And as I close, let me just say this because I won't have any more questions. This has been a really good process. We're talking about 40% tree canopy in our public spaces. Steps in the metro, as our chair talked about, this is like a really great. I would always love to have more CAF units. You just know I'm a big pro-housing person, but we're getting what we're getting. You're preserving that parking structure down below fortifying some of our bike lanes, which is great for our, our pedestrians and bicyclists. So look, I love where we're headed. I would always love more CAF housing. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over for discussions, even questions, but I'm ready to support this measure.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Other questions? I have just very short ones. On the issue, I mean, the reason for not being able to deliver a green roof is because it is the load. What is the problem with the green roof? The reason why I'm asking is because you said, well, that you want to mitigate a heat island, and you referred to the parking lot that's not going to be anymore there. So, but that's part of that. You add thermal mass to this location, and a green roof is credited to reduce the intake, the accumulation of energy in the building. So why not the green roof?
So I think it's worth mentioning that on some of the roofs that we have that are concrete, we are going to be providing green roofs. And then, of course, the one adjacent to the community garden, we will be looking at providing a thin green roof.
Yeah, that's true. That's on the taper there.
That's correct. And that is actually on a wood portion of the building, not the concrete. What I will say is that the roof, there's a tremendous amount of equipment. There are some OSHA standards for pathways that are required. One of the things to hit the energy standards, compression, we're looking at providing DOAS units to push circulated air down to the floors. Those are larger units and they take up space. So first of all, I'll say there's competing needs for the roof. The other thing that I do think is worth mentioning is it's not typical to put green roofs on wood frame structures. And it's not because of the load, because we've designed these things to accept snow loads. It's just the fact that typically you want to get water away from the wood structure as quickly as possible, just for long-term maintainability of the structure. And so it's just not typical that you see a wood frame or you see green roofing on a wood frame structure.
Yeah. Thank you for that. The second question is about, and maybe this is also for staff. So it's the configuration of the corner plaza. This is devised to be kind of a little place of respite, right? So kind of a quieter or more leafy place, which kind of is I just don't understand it very well, because first of all, across the street there's a huge plaza with a lot of opportunities to landscape it, etc., and actually future plans to do that. The second thing is, we think about these corners are really very, pedestrian intensive, commercial use intensive. This should be a place of a lot of activity, actually, rather than a quieter place. What drives our idea there? Why is that preferable to have a more traditional kind of quiet, low activity plaza as opposed to a high activity public space?
That's a very good question. The plaza, you didn't see these in the presentation, went through several iterations of design too. And again, like everything that we do in our planning, there's multiple goals and multiple ideals that we have to balance. And in this particular case, also we didn't have specific guidance other than that it should have seating and should have 40% tree canopy. However, through an interdisciplinary design group of myself, Mr. Gibson, as well as our landscape architects and urban design team on our CPHD staff, we all kind of came to a meeting of the minds where there had to be a balance between the pedestrian flow, so there's an 8-foot clear space all around it for people going to the metro, and also we had heard from feedback from the citizens. Lots of people walk that way to get to the metro, obviously, from Lyon Village, especially on the Highland Street side. So it was a combination of making sure that we had the clear path, we had the seating requirement, we also had some utility stuff that could not go away, a traffic signal box and a traffic signal mast arm that were actually turned out to be good places to do additional planting. plus, of course, meeting our Chesapeake Bay ordinance goals, the applicant's tree canopy requirements in the Chesapeake Bay ordinance. It's a balance of a lot of things. It was never in, I don't think in any plan, sector plan, intended to be a major gathering spot, more of a crossroads. But in this case, like I said, the plan does say we have the bench and a little, I think it balances pretty much everything possible. It's not a plaza you're going to be able to program a farmer's market in, obviously. And there is, I should mention, we didn't mention in our presentations for limited time, the shy zone all around the building. While the shy zone varies in width around the lobby, that's really okay because there's not going to be any outdoor seating around the retail space. There's 6 feet of shy zone that's privately owned and not subject to an easement. So for instance, they would be able to, by right, put outdoor cafe seating out there. So we'd have a little bit of, while that is the shy zone is a private area adjacent to the retail area, that would provide some activity perhaps, as well as the more passive aspects of the plaza.
Every time I come to Clarendon, I get people to see Circa and how this plaza works there. This is actually what I believe is the desirable outcome, even if smaller in footprint. We have tried ourselves with Pocket Plaza. We have tried many times with Pocket Plazas, and we seem not to get it right. Some are more leafy and nice. Some have bosques, like more trees. Others are completely barren. That also doesn't work. I think we should be orienting ourselves to the better examples, like the one I just mentioned, and try to create active spaces that are both shady and active. Because this, I can imagine, this is a question. I can imagine that you're envisioning a commercial use that is what? Is that more of a restaurant use or are other uses as well? I just remind everybody that the sector still needs a lot of grocery store capacity.
So the existing restaurateur is called Lelia Mediterranean. They have interest in taking the space when we reconstruct it.
Awesome. So no other questions. Thank you.
I had a couple. First, I think we heard a little bit in the Planning Commission comment about the fear of becoming a hotel. So I'm wondering, how is the accessory homestay, are you considering accessory homestays in these residences, or will it be prohibited? And during the lease up, do you anticipate anything like that?
We're not hotel investors. We're mainly residential and office, so we have no plan to do any kind of hotel use conversion or any of that matter.
Okay, great. That's super helpful. I think it's an issue that keeps coming up in a lot of our rental buildings, and we're still wrangling it a bit, but good to know that that's not something that's in your sights right now. Secondly, I think from transportation, we had the fortification of the bike lane, and I think we did end up with a solid curb for that bike lane. I'm curious, this is probably more of a staff question, but how are we doing on shoveling and sweeping and managing? This is a new and narrow little space for us, and how does that affect the applicant and their operations? Do we, like sidewalks, we expect the owner to help. Bike lanes are different. How's that working from a passability?
So I can only speak from experience on the snow removal in our high density commercial areas like here in Courthouse and in Clarendon. When we have a major snow event, you'll see the snow being carted off, put into the dump trucks and brought away rather than simply moved around. That is a huge benefit to our combined facilities within the right-of-way, the streets and the protected and one-street bike lane. So that will continue. Anything inside of the curb area, inclusive of the bike lane, will be maintained by the county. That said, I think we continue to work to develop resources and capacity either internally or through contract to have the right equipment to deal with the various environments we need to manage. And so my director, I'm sure, will come back to you to talk about our overall programming for that, but these facilities are certainly within the scope that we consider and look to maintain during snow events.
Great, and who knows whether it will ever snow again, but we did get a run for our money this year, and I think as the building owner and then for your operator, being aware that you're a little bit on the leading edge here, so, if we have a major snow event again, we may need your help troubleshooting a little bit and figuring out those crossings, because our bike paths actually get used as mobility opportunities for a variety of users in addition to the sidewalks, so thank you for that. And then my last question is really for staff, I think for Mr. Fusarelli. I know we've been in a lively conversation about how we continue to engage with our community to explain some of these more complex site plan decisions and trade-offs. And I know we've said here the applicant and staff did a great job, and I think the community members as well, being engaged early and sending us letters early and then updating them as we went through. But can you share a little bit from a description of density earned and density given, overall community benefits, and then just comp plan checkpoints overall? I know we're working towards a more common format for this over time, but we had a good exercise in it last month with a more controversial project, and I just would like to give you space to speak to it on this one.
Certainly, thank you for the question. And so, as I think Mr. Schultz had in his presentation this morning, there was a slide that I believe the title was something akin to site features and amenities, right? But those are the way that they were presented this morning, I think, was just a collective of things that will be delivered with this project in response to our standard site plan conditions and applicants or developers' obligation to meet those. And then in this particular project, there were several items that we heard about this morning that were really the things that will come with the project to achieve the additional density being asked above the 3.0 FAR. And in this particular case, it essentially is their commitment to the Green Building Incentive Program, as well as the on-site committed affordable units. And so site plan by site plan, the things that are provided with a specific project will vary. I appreciate you pointing back to, I think, the experience last month in the presentation we gave then at the meeting. I think we had a slightly different format in terms of how that information was being provided, and welcome the feedback, and that's something we can take back so that in future presentations on other site plans, we can think how to more effectively communicate that information. And then I think the other part of your question really had to do with infrastructure.
Yeah, I think the comp plan question. So, we often hear from community members, we haven't on this one per se, but we often do, is there enough school space? Is there enough transportation network? Can you flush the toilets? All those sort of basic things that do get looked at, but we don't always shine the light on them at the beginning of the presentation. So just, and we're working on that because they're exciting and fun things.
Yeah.
But could you just comment on that?
Certainly, and I may, in a moment, I'll probably turn the floor to my colleague, Mr. Gibson, to speak to, because a lot of the things that I think you're referencing are looked at as part of our standard review with every development application that comes before the board. Additionally, for all of our site plan and development, special exception development applications that are considered by the board, we closely coordinate on a number of fronts with our colleagues in Arlington Public Schools. And so while it was not displayed, I don't believe, in the presentation that staff gave this morning, we do have information in the board report that's posted with much greater detail about the estimated student generation that we would expect with this project if built as proposed. And so that's important information that we can relay to our colleagues in APS. And there are a variety of other ways in which we are consistently and continually coordinating with them to share data we have on the development side so that they can factor that into their near and midterm planning for facilities and the provision of educational services. But I may turn it over to Mr. Gibson if you just want to say a few more words about some of the other infrastructural components.
There we go. As it relates to infrastructure, whether it's your sewers, your water lines, the transportation infrastructure, we very frequently focus on that transportation infrastructure. It's very visible. Everybody knows it and sees it. All of our planning process does rely on the comprehensive plans that the county has adopted, which we do have comprehensive plan elements for all of our infrastructure elements. So that's the top level. And then as we get into the individual sector plans and site plans, we'll look at the individual site plans in this case to see how that fits in with the overall transmission systems for our utilities. In this case, we reviewed all of the age and size of all of the facilities, sort of very much not a glamorous part of what we do, but we do it, and we ensure that we have strong coordination across a broad range of disciplines within DES that I think you guys have championed our electronic plan review and things like that. That helps support that. So we don't talk about it much, but it does occur. And then, so that for this project was completely discussed. When you see larger projects like you may see in the future for River House, we'll do a better job of looking at that comprehensive integration of systems and the growth needed to support those bigger projects. So I think that you may see, particularly on the larger scale projects, a much more robust discussion of that. And we're committed to ensuring that that's not just done behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think here there are no issues. And so it was sort of check, 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 but it is done. And then on some of these bigger projects, there will be major investments that are needed to continue it. So we will talk more about fun things, and we appreciate them, even if they're not glamorous. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Are there any other questions, or can we proceed with?
No questions, Mr. Chair. I'm ready to close, and I think I can
Okay.
do it quickly. I stand
So-
between everybody in lunch, perhaps Ms. Patel and her son, and certainly me and my daughter. Not physically, but we're trying to get there. I'll try to be brief. I was thinking as you were talking, Ms. First of all colleagues raised smart thoughts that I had not thought of. So today you're smarter than me on this one for sure. And grateful for them. I agree with all the questions, and it's very helpful. I was thinking as you were talking, Ms. Cunningham, that we may need some combination of a Segway and a Zamboni to fix the bike areas. I am not the person to do that, but I have seen the traffic pieces. Thank you to the Planning Commission. I'm glad to hear Mr. Streiner, his rookie leadership was great. Thank you, Ms. McIntyre. I thought it was 72, 74 sounds good. Mindful that there is more to do, and it's an urgent challenge. Mr. Schultz, balanced and fair. I like that phrase in that order a little better than the other way, but really appreciate your work. Welcome to Mr. Shen. We have not grilled you, but we're grateful for your joining us the first time. I do want to just associate slightly, I appreciate the applicant as well as Mr. Weinstein, because I do want to keep echoing the message. You listen early, the world is simpler. And when I believe there are projects, when folks are thinking about where to listen early, they're like, oh God, that is a cost that is going to be higher. But I still usually think that's my style, and I think that's useful. I'm not trying to preach for you guys, but just so other people are listening, and so our staff can echo that if they've heard it, or someone is bored enough to want to watch every piece of this. But I will say, got to end with enthusiasm. This is what I signed up for. Yes to housing, yes to people, and yes to CMRI, because this is the work we have to do to keep our community thriving. And so, we want to keep that spirit, even as we're thorough. We want to have enthusiasm sometimes walking out of site plans. And there is a ton from me here, because this is why when I was 6, Arlington was not as well off as Fairfax. And then for the next 35 years, we were, because we did things like this well. And so we got to invest in economic growth. That's my rah-rah for today. And thanks very much.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Chair DeFranti. Other concluding comments? Ms. Coffey.
Thank you. Yeah, I also will be excited, though maybe not as excited as Mr. DiFranti, to support this great project. I do have the honor that this will be in my neighborhood, only a few blocks away from my current apartment building. And I do, want to commend, I think, something that we didn't spend much time on, which is the architecture and the design. I think having pretty buildings is actually, maybe a lesser tier important need for a community, but it is still an important need. And the reflection of the Art Deco design that Clarendon is so known for, that's one of the things that, for me, keeps me in the neighborhood. I think it's so cool and unique, and it's interesting to look at. And so I just want to say, those are things that make good projects great projects, and they make places into places people want to be and want to come to. And so I am very, very grateful for that. I think it will fit in well with the community. We can always go for greater affordability, and I'm really glad that our Housing Commission is continuing that conversation that I believe Mr. Weinstein is also engaging in on how we can pursue additional affordability within not just a specific project, but really across the board. How do we have the permissions from the Commonwealth of Virginia and other enabling sources in order to pursue our real affordable housing goals? Because we need it. While we were talking, pulled up our quarterly rent report for Arlington and the Ballston-Roslyn corridor. At this point, one bedrooms are averaging $25.48 now, which I am grateful to not be paying that, but I would also like to continue not paying that. And we really do need to add housing where people want to live in order to ensure that we do not displace the residents that are currently there. And so I think this is a much needed project, and I think I would be remiss not to end on the economic development angle, which is something that, interestingly enough, has put your interests aligned with our interests. I think, the only people who don't want a vacant office building more than you do might be us. And so we're grateful that you have taken the leadership to move through the process and bring us something that accomplishes our housing goals and our economic development goals and our environmental goals all simultaneously. It is going to make for a better community. It brings residents to an area where, perhaps it used to be that the business clientele was who was going out to lunch or to coffee in that area. Like I said, I live there. If you go out on a Wednesday around noon or 1 o'clock, it's a ton of people who are out and about, but it's the residents. It's the folks that are working from home. It's people who have 30 minutes between a meeting and want to grab a cup of coffee. And having more of those residents in the neighborhood is going to continue to bring more people to our own businesses that we want to be able to support. And so I think, that's another side of the economic development angle. It might not be office building staff at this point that are going to these restaurants, but that doesn't mean there aren't other people that are going to go out to those restaurants. And supporting that, creating a vibrant ecosystem where everyone can thrive together, and it may start to shift and look a little bit different. When the sector plan was produced, it was a lot of office in Clarendon. Perhaps if anyone had been able to predict this, then they would be much wealthier than they are today, but we will have to continue to evolve with the world evolving around us. And I think that that's what this project is. It's a way of meeting the goals of the community in an evolution that is true to what we all really want, which is vibrancy, placemaking, and a successful economic development community, honoring that spirit while putting forward a slightly different product that doesn't internally look exactly like what we thought was going to be there, but really still holds true to the discussions and the priorities that we've stated. So I'm very excited to support this. I'm very grateful to my colleagues, staff, applicant, commissions, everyone who comes together to put all of this in front of us, and am grateful to be welcoming new neighbors, hopefully soon, because I believe this is a project that we can also actually move forward, which in these current economic times is intrinsically deeply important to us. So I'm really looking forward to this, and thank you for everyone's hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. Mrs. Spain.
No, I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay. So I would subscribe to every single praise that the project and the process has gotten. I have to say that I had a lot of conversations with commissioners, including the Housing Commission, Mrs. Payne, because they are on SPRC, right? And there is always a question, okay, so this is housing versus office and how exactly this fits in front of a metro station and with everything else around it, et cetera. So what I see here is another piece of the Rosslyn-Boston corridor in the context of today, of this, of 2025 rather than 1980. I honestly say that I struggled a lot at the very beginning. That's already 3 years ago when EU car properties began to make first noises about what exactly to do with this, because the pressures of today were already felt back then when you were seeing that you had less of a vibrant demand for the office space. And of course, you came out of the pandemic very bruised. I understand that. So, and at the very beginning, I have been quite reluctant to give in, to say, okay. I mean, I wanted this to play out. I mean, to see what happens on the other side of the pandemic. And now we see that it is not very different now than it was. That things evolved there. So in that sense, I thank you for working very hard to get a very good project there. Something that also I agree with Ms. Coffey. It looks good. It's a very nice building. I would dispute the characterization of neo Art Deco. I think it's more of a Bauhaus geometry there, but that's me. I'm a big fan, actually. I like the intention. I could have a long conversation about how many balconies and what your balcony philosophy and what Juliet balconies in the interior space is good or not, et cetera. We could go a long thing, but we'll leave that to the Planning Commission and to those people. The moment that they've settled that, it's not our job to do this. So the building is very good. I think that we have a great opportunity with the unused parking space. We heard a lot about EV. The first generation of EV thinking here was always that we have trickle chargers and we have this amenity. We think of EV charging as like you plug in a charger at home for your phone or so. This is not the case. You need load. And actually, this is now the moment where we can think, where we have additional space, where we can think of higher powered charging that can be a real amenity. Modern EVs can charge with significant mileage, like over 300 miles in half an hour. So actually, yes, you have an underground gas station, potential gas station there, under the condition that, of course, Dominion will be able to give you the load letter for that. I'm not so sure that this will be an easy ask, but the space now you have it, and you have it in the middle of Clarendon. This can alleviate the need to build up this more trickle infrastructure somewhere else. So it's actually a win-win for a lot of reasons. I will miss the plaza that's there, that we never got to really make a good use of it. I hope that as you evolve, as the project is lived in and settles, that you will see the amazing opportunities that you have in the public space that surrounds this place, and that your future commercial tenants will find ways to make that a nice and vibrant and welcoming space for indeed a lot of people who are going there every day, and they're mostly residents. So, and with that, I will be supporting the motion, and that's my last word. So we can, yes, we can call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. We have a new building in Clarendon. Thank you. So, Mr. Kushner, do we have any other issues coming before the board?
We do have one additional item.
Yes,
I
we
believe
do.
we have staff joining us
A
from the
very
back for a
serious one,
moment.
by the way. Yes. We do. It's a. Stay. You want to stay for this? Yes, it's the planning commission has to weigh in on that. I'm sure. Yes, it's absolutely true. Yeah. C2E2 as well, because I am not so sure that we are on the right side of our. Yes. So it is customary to say happy birthday when somebody is. Thank you. Happy birthday to you. We can sing that if you. No. We don't have to though.
Save it for karaoke. Oh, I think we do.
We may burn down the system. Happy birthday, Susan Cunningham. It's also Mother's Day, so in that sense, for all mothers around us and for our old mothers, those who are here and those who are not, thank you for everything you do for us. So, happy birthday. And with that, I don't think that we can take a vote on this, right? It's kind of informational. We are recessed until next Tuesday, May 13th,